Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Great Debate Community channel. Today, your boy Trill is going to be hosting it, and I had an interesting topic kind of on my mind that I kind of want to share with you guys to see what other people think of it, because I don't think that a lot of people cover this kind of topic, at least not properly. So, without further ado, because I know this is going to be a hard one for some people, because I know people are going to get really up in arms about the whole misotheism thing, and if you really do believe or not, because right away a lot of people go like, this sounds like something that Christians say, where they basically say, oh, you're just choosing not to believe in God and all that kind of stuff. And I want to say at first of all that is not what I am trying to say either. Basically, the topic is how many atheists are actually misotheists. So I want to clear this up right away. I am not saying that all atheists are misotheists. I think that'd be stupid. I think there is a reason why we even have the term atheist in the first place. Obviously, there isn't a whole bunch of evidence out there that, God exists for the average everyday person. However, I still think there are some people out there that have experienced enough evidence for themselves where they can say, yeah, okay, this God exists, or I feel deep down that this God exists, but I don't like the fact that this God exists. And I think, honestly, it should be okay to say that. Like, to be able to admit sometimes that, that if you honestly believe that this God is there, but you're kind of calling yourself an atheist because it's an easier label, or you just kind of want to, I guess, kind of be intellectually dishonest with yourself because you don't think that you think there's evidence for God, but you want to kind of play like this disbelief kind of game with yourself, then I don't know. I don't think that's a true atheist in my mind, but I actually have some other people in the room, so I'll let them be able to respond.
I don't know, dude. I don't get this deep into this shit.
You don't get too deep into it?
I just don't care. Like, I'm like at the agnostic point of not giving a shit.
All right, so I'd say you're more of an agnostic than or a lack theist, or whatever they call it.
I call myself a non-theistic pagan.
Oh,
That
okay.
means I look at what Odin says and I'm like, you know what? That sounds like good advice, but you know what? I don't necessarily believe in him.
Ah, okay. So it's like you take their ideals, but you don't necessarily believe the home is real.
Well, I'm not going to go kill people to go to Valhalla, but yeah.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I might die honorably. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. No, that's understandable.
But, it's an atheist has the right to just choose not to believe in God.
Right.
Even though Christians might not think that. Well, some Christians. Let's not just say Christians.
Yeah. I know. I'm just trying to be careful because I don't want it to come across like, how the Christians say it, right? Where it's like, well, you're just
like they try and do that to us. I don't want to do that to them.
No, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm just basically saying, how many people out there that identify as atheists, maybe some of them actually do believe deep down, but they wouldn't never say it, they may not even be very strong atheists because of that point. But, they identify with that because it's an easier label. And instead of wanting to deal with the whole God concept, they say, you know what, I'm just going to,
I just don't give a shit.
Right. But it's not necessarily coming from a place of true disbelief, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I guess denying something, or almost like, it's like the whole it's like the concept of lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of. Where it's like if there's a doctor's report or whatever, and they say, you got cancer or whatnot. And it's like you choose not to accept the fact that you have cancer.
I'm sorry, I'm not the most intellectual person to talk about this with.
That's okay. I'm not super intellectual either, man. I think we're kind of in the same boat. You just don't know it. I'm serious. This is like I'm racking my brain.
I'm racking my brain and still silent.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes sometimes I'm just really good at sounding smart without actually being smart. So
I wish I could do that.
I know it's hard. Hey, it's harder than you think.
Man, I've already forgotten all that knowledge I had on Greek lore. Fuck.
Greek lore, you mean like mythology-wise?
Yeah, like mythology-wise.
Oh, like Zeus and all that stuff? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's a little bit different for me because I'm also a writer. I like to write stories and
I
stuff,
write
so...
stories too. What?
Wow, no. It stays in here more because it's something I'm kind of interested in, so...
Yeah.
And sometimes when the topics are thrust in your face, which they kind of are if you stick around this community, it gets you thinking a little bit more. So if I end up sounding philosophical, it's like completely unintentional. I do not consider myself philosophically grounded
You
at
don't look
all.
philosophical. No offense.
No, because I'm not. I'm not, all right? When it comes to this knowledge stuff, I like to consider myself pretty lame, and I just have a genuine interest in things. That's why I say I have an interest in biology. I'm not a biologist. I don't have a PhD, just a genuine interest. Like, what's your biology level of education? High school.
I have an interest in underwater welding. I'm not an expert.
Right, exactly. I just have an interest enough to look into specific things that interest me, but sometimes it goes over my head. You know, you start talking about the ATP synthase and stuff like it. No, I'm out. No, I don't know what you're talking about anymore.
What does that mean? ATP
I don't know.
synthase?
Don't ask me. That's not my forte.
What?
They talk about it quite a bit though. Like, oh, it's so dumb that True Pearson believes this and that, and I'm kind of going to myself, well, I don't know what that is.
You know, I don't.
Dumb too.
My church never explicitly stated it, but I realized at some point that when I was younger, I was that hella indoctrinated kid in class who would stand up while the teacher was preaching something about evolution and say, "Oh, but God says." I was that kid, and I look back on that now and I want to cry. It's like Pepe crying.
Oh man, that's funny. Don't get me wrong, I can totally relate though.
Yeah, I remember that teacher too.
Yeah.
She looked like she was dying of old age already.
Yeah, I don't get. Make me wrong. That happens. Trust me. Because I was raised. I was raised creationist in that too, right? Come from a Christian background, and it just gets to the point where it's like I learned about evolution because that was part of school and all that, and then you go, well, this evolution stuff looks interesting and all scientific and that, but Bible says otherwise.
Yeah.
So cognitive dissonance.
Fucking hell, dude. I wouldn't have been as staunchly Christian as I was if my parents had introduced me to anything else at all. Like, they didn't sit me down and explain, oh, this is what Hinduism is, or oh, this is what Islam is, or this is what Judaism is. They just sort of said, well, Jesus is right, and then that was it.
Yeah.
That and church camp. I didn't go to church camp. There was a thing where they'd send us to church once a day, like instead of school. It was during the summer, though.
Right. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I understand the whole, I guess, indoctrination kind of thing.
Kind of hoping Immutable comes in here and picks up my slack.
I know, but he said AFK, so. That just kind of is. I don't know. Maybe I can't attract the same kind of audience that Steve gets, even if it's one of his channels.
Yo, I don't have a link to the video.
Oh, you don't?
And I'm inept. I can't find it.
Okay, I can give you that.
Sweet. Hey, Heavy's here. Finally, someone to pick up my slack.
There we go.
I've been just sort of sitting here like, well, I guess.
Whose channel are we on?
Great Debate Community.
Great Debate Community.
Yeah.
I've heard the word and I've heard a little about it. I actually had to look it up on Google. So it's someone that believes God exists but hate him, right?
Yeah, that's me. I'm a Misotheist.
But see, but those of us that don't accept any gods at all, we get accused of that very thing, though.
Yeah, I know.
No God exists, but you hate him. You want to live in your
I addressed that in the beginning.
That's the difference between atheism and anti-theism.
Actually, anti-theism is more against the religion, I thought.
Oh yeah, but like you kind of have to hate God to hate the religion.
Yeah, but a lot of anti-theists I know also don't believe that God exists.
No, you see, it's hating the concept of God is how I envisioned it.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind then.
And I guess it's not impossible to have a theistic anti-theist.
Yeah.
I mean, that was me for a while.
And I guess like LaVeyan Satanism is as close as you get to it.
Yeah, it's like atheism with extra steps.
Yeah.
I have a
Again-
LaVeyan Satan Bible.
Again, that is atheism, right?
It's basically that. In the LaVeyan Satanic Bible, it literally says not to worship deities or something.
Okay. So it's like
It's
now
like
you have a
most-
rule not to worship deities. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the most trolly form of atheism you can get to.
Yeah.
It's great. I have the LaVeyan Bible, and my mom freaked out.
It's atheism with rules.
And then I read it out loud to her, and she just sort of scoffed and walked away. It was great.
Wow. Yeah, Tyler's saying in the chat here, you can be an atheist and anti-theist. Yeah, that's... Well, I thought a lot of anti-theists were kind of atheists by default. I usually just considered an anti-theist an atheist. Usually.
Most of them would be, I would assume.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I was only an anti-theist for a short while, but I
Right.
went from full Christian to confused around the election, to atheist, but like semi in denial, to atheist to anti-theist.
Right.
I blame Aaron Raw for that.
Don't blame him? Oh, okay.
No, I do blame him.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
Hey,
He's
you-
making
come on.
jokes, obviously.
The holy potato is its own slack. I am a root.
Right. We still got to learn more about this potato religion sometime.
I need to learn more about it. I made this shit up and I don't know shit.
That's not good.
And y'all want to help me?
But anyways, Midnight, did you have any thoughts?
On what?
The topic at hand? Well, or do you not know what the topic is?
Hold on. How many atheists are actually Misotheists? Would you mind
Yeah.
explaining the Misotheist part?
Misotheist, that's the hatred of God or gods.
How can you hate something that may or may not exist? You don't know if it does.
I mean, I hate the color pink, but my room ain't pink.
But you can prove pink exists. I mean, you can look at it. Oh yeah, we could say
I
it's
can't
just-
prove that there's anything pink in my room, can I?
Get a
For all I
camera.
know, there's a pink and a black hole under my bed.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention black hole because technically they're all around us. They just appear and disappear so quickly. It's impossible for them to actually become big enough.
Is
Just
it like
also-
is
Well,
it like
next-
that one? What?
Next time you see one, let me know.
Yeah, man.
They're microscopic. I don't know.
Is that what floaters are? Like when you lay down and you see a weird circle floating across your vision? Is that what that really is?
They're
It's a
actually
black
black holes.
I don't know.
That's the way
Maybe.
to think about it. I like that. I like that now.
I mean,
I want to bring that up to Steve
Maxwell-
McCrae. Hey, so those little floater things, are those black holes?
Maxwell thought Aaron Raw was a misotheist. Is that right? Because I'm pretty sure he claims to be an
Yeah.
anti-theist.
I don't know what's up with Maxwell. I honestly feel like he's kind of playing contrarian. I don't know what his position is.
Where do you think Aaron Raw stands?
He
I
does.
think he's atheist.
He doesn't accept that God exists.
Yeah, so he would
I
be
know
an
it's
atheist.
that heavy. He's
Oh.
made how many videos about that?
Well, what would you call it?
I don't know. I think he's mentioned anti-theism several times.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I
again,
don't
here's the
know.
thing: anti-theism is still technically atheism.
With
If you-
extra
if-
letters.
Pretty much, just you have extra. It's just like you have an extra hatred towards religion or whatever. But you don't need
Well-
to hate it in order to not believe.
Yeah. See, look at Apologia coming clutch.
we need a Dean Esme in here.
You know,
Or sorry, Max Kolb.
Apologia's avatar doesn't look janky from when it's really small.
Oh man.
Oh, I'm hungry.
No offense, Apologia. We
You're
all
really cutting into people, aren't you?
Nah, man, I
First
love Apologia.
Blue and
He's
now
great.
Apologia. Shoot.
I have nothing
Oh,
against
speaking of
Apologia.
Blue.
Blue just started talking shit, so I called him a Forest Troll.
Well, not only that, you didn't you say he hangs out by parking, no, playgrounds or something?
What? No, I made a joke that he's the kind of guy to go to a playground with candy in his pocket or something, and he got
but-
real fucking offended. And I tried to apologize. He
All
told
right,
me,
but back on topic though. 'Cause
yeah, back
people
on
don't,
topic,
people don't
though.
like it when you go off on tangents, even though I love doing that.
That's
Because I like
all-
talking about almost anything else other than the subject sometimes. But yeah, do people know what I mean when I use the term misotheist? Because a lot of people are asking, like in the live chat.
Yeah, I don't think it's that familiar to a lot of people, to be honest.
Okay.
'Cause I've hardly heard the word at all, really.
So misotheism
Go look at
basically is defined as the hatred of God or gods, basically. And the funny thing about misotheism is it's not the same as atheism, because atheists don't believe that these gods and that it exists. And where
Yeah.
misotheists accept that God exists, whichever God it is that they are not fond of, but they don't like him. But they still believe that the God exists.
Yeah.
Maybe people use misotheists in different ways, because I know the weird definitions game, it can be all over the place, but that's how I define the term. And that's how, when I call myself a misotheist, that's what I mean.
So what are you?
Misotheist.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, so you
hate,
accept God's presence, you just don't like him.
Right.
I mean, I can get behind that.
Yeah. So
Like-
it kind of puts me in a weird sort of position when it comes to this community, because you got
But hold on, but-
atheists on one
but
side, theists on one
doesn't-
side, and I'm not either one of them.
but doesn't that give excuse me, doesn't that give credence to them? Say, oh, you're just rebelling against God. I mean,
What do
if
you
you
mean, does it
accept
give
that God,
credence to them?
no, let me rephrase. Okay, you
Okay.
say you accept God exists, but you don't
Right.
like him. You know,
Right.
therefore, you're giving them credit. You know what? Never mind. It's not coming out right.
Okay, so are you
Which
saying
God,
that
which God do you believe in, real quick? Which is the God that you believe in?
I'm the Christian God?
And you believe he sent his son to die and all that. You believe the whole story.
Oh yeah, I was raised with it.
So what is it that you hate about him?
I don't like the fact that he has well, get into all different things. I guess there's strict rules on things. The fact that he
How about,
sort of forces you to worship
how about,
him, quote unquote.
Cyberpunk.
How about that Jesus kind of is God? So Jesus sent himself, or no, God sent himself to sacrifice himself to himself to forgive us and save us from himself.
But
Well, that's
no,
more
no,
of a logic thing. That has nothing to do with.
yeah, but what I was trying to say is that you're kind of proving their point that you're just rebelling against him. It gives, it
I mean,
gives.
is it,
I don't
is
get
it wrong
why
to
that's.
accept-
I don't get why that's a bad thing. Like,
why
and
it's not
Well,
bad.
no, hold on. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but for them it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you how I see it.
They can see that.
Okay, but the thing is that I still think atheists exist. So when they say, "Oh, you're just rebelling," I don't think that is accurate of everybody that claims to not be a believer.
I never.
Because I think
know,
there are.
I'm just giving it to you from their perspective.
Okay, well, yeah, it does give it credence, but because they're going to say, "Oh, that's everybody that's not a believer," and it's like, no, that's not everybody that's not a believer or a follower or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, their
It
position
only
is
gives them
flawed.
credence to a sense.
Yeah, to a sense, that gives their position is flawed. No, there's no denying that.
Right.
You know.
Right. The problem is that they're just going to automatically assume that the person that they're talking to has like the misotheistic position, like pretty much always, if
Yep.
they're a non-believer. Or that, they've been led astray. Like it's the agnostic, I don't know if God exists or whatnot, and then they have to do the conversion process on them.
Well,
Kinda
I mean,
thing.
I
In a lot of believers'
always,
minds, there's no atheists.
I always tell them that I'm agnostic, and I don't know whether there is, but I'd rather he judge, I'd rather he judge me based on, how I act, based on how I act and interact in the world. Like, if God wants to kill, wants to punish me simply for not believing in him, then okay, sure, he can do that after I die. I'm like, but for me to simply cower in fear and I believe God, please, please, I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. That's really what it sounds like to me. It's fear. It's a fear tactic. It's like it's like a child being abused, being abused by their parent, and then a child going, "I'm a good boy, Daddy. Please don't whip me anymore with the belt. I'm a good boy." Right?
You know what? I can I hear you. I feel you. I can relate. I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's quite the same because
okay, it's not. Oh, I'm obviously not trying to make light of child abuse. Okay, that was not my intention.
Right. No.
But I'm just saying it feels like that way. You know what I mean? The fear that they instill in people.
Yeah. Right. No, I will admit, no, it is definitely, a fear tactic, and even the ones that don't use it as a fear tactic, they say, "Oh, this is just the truth," and whether you like it or not.
I had to deal with rational theist Matt. Oh, this is the truth. I believe God exists. I can't prove it,
right?
But I know He's true. I'm like, get the hell out of here.
It was amazing listening to Tex scream, "You're going to hell."
What?
Jesus.
Have you not met Tex?
Oh, I know who he is because he's that flat earther that was introduced at one time with Steve's
Red.
Oh man,
he was talking to Red, and Red shat all over his points, and he left screaming, "You're all going to hell." You see how he face palm?
Oh no, I didn't. Oh man,
you missed that.
Well, I think I know what I got to see.
But yeah, for me, it's like...
it was one of a different streams that Steve was hosting.
Oh man, that was insane. That sounds insane.
It was. He was trying to. I think he was trying to say that the moon was a bowl. Am I right, Heavy?
He kind of lost me a lot of times. I mean, being from the South, I should understand what that boy's saying, but damn.
Heavy Hauler's a veteran here, and even he couldn't keep track, so I'm not that off.
I actually had to just go away for a while and do something else.
I saw that.
Hey, Heavy, I salute you.
I salute you for sticking up to it as long as you could.
Yeah.
Well, no. You said he's a veteran. I salute you for protecting,
what?
For whatever.
Protecting the debate community.
Oh no!
Wait, hold on. Was he?
No,
was he?
I said he was a veteran of the debate community.
Well, I misunderstood you. I thought he was. He was in the military.
No.
All right. Well,
Gandalf is not served.
They stopped the draft about a month after I turned 18.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
they just didn't get to you.
Okay, that was back in the 70s.
Okay. Well,
you're older than my uncle. What the hell?
No, I am 63.
No, wait, you are as old as my uncle. My uncle turned 60 not that long ago.
Yeah. There's a few of us
weird
around here. I think there's some that are older than me too.
I actually have a question for you. How long have you been growing that pepper thing? Like your entire hair. How long? I can't speak. Fuck you.
How long have you been sculpting?
It's more like a tumbleweed. You hold it up to the light and you can see right through it.
No.
Does that make you Russian like a tumbleweed? I bet most of you didn't know tumbleweeds were Russian.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years. Since I retired, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let it just keep on going. Everything.
I do now. But Cyborg, I don't know if I know or if I'm just accepting it.
Nah, it was brought over on ships and shit, the seeds.
Oh, okay. There you go.
You can look that shit up. I know a bunch of random, stupid, useless facts.
Oh, don't worry. That's me, too. Just weird things that no one else needs to know, but I know.
It was useful for distracting the bullies for about 5 minutes. It's like, hey, give me your lunch money. Salt is sweet to dogs.
Hey, did you know that one arm is actually longer than your other arm? Before I punch you.
You put your heel to your inner elbow and your foot would line up with your arm. And they're like, shut up. And then they'd go off and do it instead of taking my lunch money.
Well, hey, at least it's a good defense tactic. I don't know if I recommend it.
Oh, no, I got beat up multiple times. It doesn't matter. I started being bigger than them and they left me alone.
Like how? What did you do? Did you get on a chair and
I'm
tell?
6'3" and I weigh 260 pounds. How do you think I got bigger than them?
I don't know. This is nuts. We're getting way off topic.
There was a guy in the.
Yeah, we are getting way off topic.
Yeah, there was a guy in the external. Now, if I ruin the last name, I'm sorry. Herman.
That was like a heavy. You finish.
Herman
And then we'll
Roll.
go back to topic.
Oh, now Herman Roller said something about, out of curiosity, what is the point of hating God, assuming a belief in the three omnis attributed to him or her? You see it?
What is the point? Oh, hating God, right. Well, I think the point comes in when... Well, here's the thing. When it comes to my position, I will not necessarily claim it's one out of logic. I mean, I understand it's not one out of logic. It is more of a position out of emotion. So I understand that if God's omnipresent, if he's everywhere, he knows everything and can do anything, then I understand where people are coming from. They say there's not too much of a point. However, I would not be honest with myself if I was saying that, oh, I'm okay with all these different things that God does, and if this is how he set up everything, this is how it's going to be. I don't feel okay with preaching that to other people. I don't feel okay with, worshiping a God that's like that. Like, it's something that I know is just hard for me to justify myself. Like, it goes against my own values.
Let me ask you something real quick. Would you rather spend eternity with lawyers or eternity with Christians? Heaven or hell?
That's a tough one. I mean, eternity with I guess lawyers, but then what if some of those lawyers are actually Christians who just gone to hell?
If I died tomorrow, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, whatever. Well, no, I was just saying, what if some of those lawyers are actually Christians, but they just went to hell because of their profession? I mean,
then I can make fun of them. No, I want to. If I died tomorrow, I would beg Satan for a demonary position just so I can mess with Kent. Can I have it for the next 3 years? I just want to play with Kent. Come on, please. All right, mortal.
You're a nutcase. You're a nutcase.
Go have fun, mortal. Make me happy.
That's even better than Ben's. That's even better than what Ben does. Or you like my voice? Yeah.
All you would have to do is just get like a voice changer. You're good,
dude. I just need to give Satan a pole dance, and I'll be demon, and I'll get to mess with Kent.
Yeah.
Can you give me lessons, Heavy?
Did you get to mess with Kent after he's dead? Do you get to mess with Kent?
No. If I died tomorrow, I would beg Satan to become a demon so I could play with Ken. Otherwise, I would probably just accept it.
All right.
That would be fun.
So, Jared, welcome to the stream. Is there anything?
I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm saying.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll miss you, but some of the people in the audience won't. They found you annoying.
Well, he left already. Cyborg is a way of getting under people's skin if you don't know him that well. Me, it's just like, whatever. I've known you for a while. I know how you act. Just
I find him funny.
Yeah, you do, but some people, I don't know. Some people just don't.
Anyways, Jared, what did you want to say or whatnot? Because you're new.
Well, there was a quote that I put into the YouTube chat that Cyborg loved, but didn't have the balls to say himself. So I was like, you know what? I'll say it then. I have no fear. And that's when you really look at it. When you look at the entirety of the Bible, there is only one conclusion you can come down to with the Christian version of God. And that's he's an egotistical cunt.
Pretty much.
Wait, Cyborg couldn't say that. What?
No, wow.
No.
That's beyond Cyborg's capacity. That's news to me.
Yeah, well, he didn't want to say it because his reason that he gave was he wanted to keep it more respectful on the panel. I was like, I have no fear. I'll say it. My opinion is known to anyone who's spent enough time talking to me and religion has come up. I mean, part of that is because I've had the misfortune of reading 15 different translations and versions of the Christian Bible. So,
Jesus, how long did it take you?
Yeah.
I mean, were you forced?
Wow.
You know what? It's morbid curiosity because my paternal grandfather was a professor of theology at the University of Michigan, and I used to go spend the summers out at his house. And in his study, in his office, was multiple copies of whatever religious manuscript I wanted to read. And if he didn't have it in person, he could get it from work.
Nice. Well, I mean, yeah, morbid curiosity is good, but 50, like.
It's 15 versions of the Bible, 2 versions of the Torah, and a direct to English translation of the Quran.
All in English? Is this all in English? All in English?
All in a form of English. Some of it was contemporary English, some of it was Old English, which made it really hard to understand. Like, if you have a hard time with Shakespeare, this stuff, even worse.
Ooh.
Which ones are those? I'd like to look those up.
The older ones from like the 1400s, 1300s and older.
Wow, that's old.
In English?
In contemporary English of that time.
What were they called?
Like I forget the names of them. Last time I read one of them was about 20 years ago.
Well, someone's done their research then. Cool.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
You should be in these conversations more.
Well, no, and that's where when someone mentions the Bible as being the Word of God, my first question is, which version?
Well, of course, everyone has to have a question.
Well, come on, Jared. Don't you know a lot of them like to appeal to like the King James?
Oh God, and that is
King
the
James
worst
homies.
one.
But the King James homies, though, they won't let you have that.
And that is the worst version. Anytime someone mentions that one, I immediately lose all sense of credibility in what they have to say beyond that point.
Yeah, you'd be fun for King James onlyists. Let me tell you that.
Well, whenever I used to read the King James version, there was like certain parts of it you'd read, like, you know, like Genesis 1:1, and then go up to John 1:1 and start reading there. And it's like the Old English or whatever. It's like just kind of had a real majestic sound to it. Or like when you read the Psalms.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
like
it's like
shout stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's just the way it kind of sounds when you read it. Now, you're talking about, you know, believing in God exists but hating Him or whatever. Now, see, when I used to be a Christian, I was like, I accepted all the, you know, the Old Testament, all the bad stuff there and the contradictions. I accepted all that. It was kind of, I don't know how I did that, but I did, you know, cognitive dissonance or whatever. I looked at the Old Testament like it was the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Of course, the few kind of mounted into thousands of people, you know, getting killed, but or whatever. But I accepted it as His word, as His revelation to us over time, and then Christ, you know, as His Son. Or some people argue about, was He actually God in the flesh, or was He just separate, you know, stuff like that. And I never did kind of quite come to terms with that. But I accepted all of this and did not have any hatred towards Him, because it was like I could understand the revelation or how it was or something. What turned me away when I began to fall away was when this thing called divine hiddenness. I'd never heard the word until about the past year, but that was kind of what happened to me. I'm like, I'm doing all this worshiping and praying and singing and stuff, you know, witnessing and studying the Bible. I have a study Bible. It's about that thick. It's about to fall apart. And I was really into this, but it was like there's nothing coming back from the other side. However, I don't know how you can explain. I can't explain that, but it's like you feel like, you know, the lion's dead or something, you know, or if someone's there, they're ignoring you completely. And I'm like, I left the church I was going to, the Southern Baptist. I even went to a word church where they did the tongues and stuff like that. And Seventh-day Adventist, I went there for a while. It's like, maybe there's a piece of this I'm missing somewhere. And I never did find it. And all those 4 or 5 years that I was a believer, it just slowly started falling apart because I wasn't getting like confirmation back or something. Faith wasn't enough. You hear people say, I know God exists. Well, I wanted to know. And it just sort of went downhill from there. I never went back.
Yeah, see, I've always been one for empirical evidence. And it's like, yeah, there are times that you do have to put your faith into someone. But for someone with that sort of background, it's based on a track record of being correct with empirical evidence. Is like, I will trust a scientist who has years and decades of study in a particular field that they have a proven track record.
See, the problem is that kind of goes to the credence. I mean, to do what Midnight was doing, that kind of gives the whole credence. Oh, so you're accepting the science stuff by faith.
Wait. But see, there's a difference between accepting what a scientist says and.
Well, can you explain that then? Because this is where it gets really bad. I'm not trying to be like the Christian necessarily, but this is where it gets pretty bad.
Okay, well, and here's where it comes in. Science is independently verifiable. In order for someone to posit something and then get acclaim for the results of a particular research project they did, that work has been verified. It's been put through the ringer before being accepted in the community as a whole. That's one thing. That's one thing. I also
like to point out that just because you accept science, what the scientist says, doesn't mean you're not going to question him. I mean, right? You know, there's a difference between blind faith and having faith for questioning, right?
Exactly. And then the other bit too is I have a strong background in electrical engineering and a little bit of mechanical engineering and aeronautical engineering. Those are my forte right now. I'm actually about to go back to school for general physics because I can get paid to go back to school and I'm a curious motherfucker. So I'm going to broaden my personal background.
Ironically, saying amen on that. You being a curious motherfucker. Amen. Ironically, though.
Yeah. But so with that is I understand how the scientific process works. I understand how results are garnered and then explained and understood. I don't have to perform the experiment myself in order to understand it from reading the paper. So I don't have to do the work physically myself to understand and accept it. Faith, when it comes to religion, that's all they have to go on.
I hope that answers your question.
No. That actually answers it really well. Because, you know, that's a really good point. Because, you know, independently verifiable and all that. I guess the only thing that I would have to say in response to that is that until you've done the tests yourself, you are kind of going by faith. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's the best I can do too. I'm not a scientist.
Well, exactly. But it's an educated stance at that point. It's not blind.
Okay. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Yeah. Just until you've done it yourself to like verify and all that, you are. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that they are technically right when they say it's a thing when it comes to faith, because you are going off of somebody else's word when you yourself haven't done the research in the field and all that. So you are kind of trusting that what they say
Well,
is true.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
Again, I don't
certain
want to cry
experiments.
conspiracy here, but I'm just trying to say, like, technically, that's.
Well, yeah, I don't know. You know, certain experiments you can probably do yourself. I can't think of any right now, but you know, other experiments will probably require you to have like a 10-year education, so you know, so you can operate the LHC. You know what I mean? Just to push the button on the Large Hadron Collider, you need at least 10 years education. Oh, let me run a test. Press button. You know what I mean? Hello?
No, exactly. That's the point. Is saying that it's based on faith. It does come down to a technicality. It does come down to semantics and pretty much picking nits. When you come to the big difference between religious faith and that sort of faith and weight you put into a scientist and what they have to say as it relates to their field, because that's the biggest thing. Is if you have a scientist with a history in molecular biology, I'm not going to put shit to what they have to say about cosmology. Now, if Michio Kaku or Neil deGrasse Tyson were to say something about cosmology, I'll take what they have to say for what it is. But if it sparks my curiosity on something, I'm not going to stop there. It may spark a question in my head that I go further with. Whereas religion, for the most part, when you really look at the Christian faith, especially the Christian church, not necessarily the faith, but the church, through its history, it has wanted to stifle that natural curiosity.
Okay.
Well, because think about what was happening. Like,
Right.
Copernicus waited until his deathbed to release some of his greatest works. Why? Because he knew of the retribution that would come from the church.
Right, and I've heard. Yeah, I remember learning about that.
I'm with you about the whole natural curiosity thing. It seems like society in general, you know Carl Sagan, right? Obviously you do. Like I don't. Like, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen his video where he was talking. Hold on a second.
No, it's interesting. I was going to interject and say, if someone says they're naturally curious about anything scientific and doesn't know the name Carl Sagan, they're lying to you.
Excuse me.
So I have a.
Guys, does anyone know who Patron is?
I have no idea. How did he even get the link? Or she? I don't know.
Again, I don't want to just let people in just in case, you know, they might try to snipe it or something. Steve said to put on the cameraman thing.
No, I'm good. Okay, but no, sorry, Jared. I'm sure you know how Carl Sagan was, and I forget the name right now, but he was talking to this one woman who was saying that he went to kindergarten and first grade, and the kids kept asking a lot of deep questions. He goes to 12th grade, none of that. The students in 12th grade are just not interested, not curious. So something happens between kindergarten, first grade, and 12th grade that just destroys that curiosity. And that is sad. How the natural curiosity just is drained out of people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of that really depends on the school, because I was exceptionally lucky because excuse me, I actually got to see how, especially the secondary level, the high school level here in the U.S. works in multiple locations. Little history with me. My dad was military. My dad was active duty Navy. So when my dad retired, I was a freshman in high school in the state of Connecticut. Shortly thereafter, we moved to a neighboring state, so I had to change schools. So I went from starting my high school career at the oldest secondary school in the continental U.S., on the entire continent of North America. It was the first established secondary school. I went from that sort of lineage school to a basic public inner city school in a different state. And holy shit, the level of education dropped significantly. The first school that I went to actually encouraged the questions and actually fostered that ideal of, yes, this is what we're showing you, but there's more out there. It was encouraging that insatiable thirst for knowledge.
Right.
They had, a couple years before I went there, my older siblings went to that school, so I saw how they upgraded just the library alone. They invested over $1 million just in upgrading the library.
Right.
How many schools in the U.S. do you hear that really do that are not private schools? And that was a real kicker. Is
I mostly hear high schools talking about, our football team is so good. We spend like $1 million to get the new equipment. I'm like, okay, yeah, sports are important, but Jesus Christ, can't you work on academics too?
Oh, actually, if you guys want to look it up, the name of the school is the Norwich Free Academy in Norwich, Connecticut. If you go there, you can go on Google Earth. You can even go to their website and see the map of the campus. And I mean it. It is a campus. It is a multiple building facility. It looks like a small college. And they treat it as such. So
well,
they have an amazing library. They have their own freaking fine art museum.
Right. So
how much are they paying you to sell it? Sorry, I had to make that joke.
You keep talking about it. Shit. Do you want to advertise it here? Is this what are we secretly sponsored by them? We don't even know it.
But see that,
shoot, you just keep going on about it. So
see, and that's the thing is, when you have a school that actually cares about the results of their work, that's the sort of loyalty that you end up getting. And this is from a high school, not a college. People generally will espouse about the college that they go to in this manner. It's like, oh, I learned so much while there. I had all these facilities at my fingertips whenever, however I wanted.
Go to the Norwich campus where they actually care about education.
Well, and
is the commercial over?
Well, a little history of.
Could you type it in the side chat? Sorry, could you?
Oh, I can't see the YouTube chat.
I guess you're on a phone. Oh no, on the side. All right, you're on the phone. Never mind. So it's fine. I guess we'll find it later. I don't know.
What was it called again?
It was the Norwich Free Academy. Norwich. It is located in Norwich, Connecticut.
Yeah, sorry, I was away from the keyboard. That's why.
Yeah, Max Weber did the hard work for us. He'll Google.
Yeah. The Norwich Free Academy, where we actually care about your education.
I'm serious. Go take a look at it. It takes up 2 blocks.
Ooh, well, I guess that's something to look at. Anyways, because I kind of wanted to get back on topic. Patron, I think that's how you pronounce his name. If he's still with us in the.
Yeah, I'm here.
Was there something that you wanted to say in particular? Well, you were kind of sitting I want to make sure everybody's kind of addressed here. So.
Yeah, I just came in here just to listen in, but there was a couple of topics beforehand that really that piqued my interest that have gone past and gone. So
no, probably not, because it might be the main topic of the Hangout, but we keep getting sidetracked. We'll see.
Well, actually, I'm more interested on Heavy. So, like, I wanted to ask Heavy more about his past, because a while ago I asked the question and he gave me an answer about King Crocoduck. But so how did Heavy? How did you come up with the link? Not just the link, but like the idea behind morality. The answer to how does an atheist deal with the morality issue?
Oh, well, if I'd been raised atheist, you learn from your parents, from your friends, from people that are your school teachers, and then as you get older, you begin to make your own choices. Not all people make good choices. It kind of, to me, it's like empathy. I mean, that's a good place to start. You know, it's like I don't want anyone to steal my stuff, so I'm not going to steal theirs.
Yeah, treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
It's kind of a real basic thing, but it expands into a whole other thing where you learn, you know, right from wrong. You know, that when you do things, you hurt other people, and that's wrong. You know, like, you know, you want to try and do things to help people, to make their lives better, to encourage them, instead of trying to make their lives miserable or hurt them or whatever. But I think the empathy thing, for me, I'm not saying all atheists agree with this, but that's a really good place to start. It's like some things could happen, and you have to make a choice between this option or that option. Sometimes the choice you make may be the better choice in the long run, but it hurts to make it. And then you realize, you know, this is a choice you have to make. You kind of set yourself aside to help somebody else. Sorry. I know I'm fumbling through this.
No, like, yeah, this is, to be honest, this is first time I'm actually being public with myself on the GDC here. So I'm trying
welcome.
I'm trying to work my way into it. So
I wasn't raised atheist though. See, when I got to thinking about it, and it's like I was pretty much exposed to Christianity and whatever from as far back as I can remember, because my grandmother, she was a holy roller. She took me to church sometimes.
All right.
I lived in a little trailer park, and people from one of the Baptist churches would come in from the felt board things and do these little figures and tell little Bible stories to us as we were kids. Now, as I was growing up, friends would invite me to their church, or the parents would kind of insist that I go. You know, my parents were not, but I was exposed to a lot of it.
If I can address something that's said in the live chat, it actually goes. Wow, thanks, Phony Beetle Maniacs. You're making us go back on topic. Phony Beetle Maniacs actually says, I don't think it's fair to try and categorize someone as something they don't categorize themselves as. If someone decides they're an atheist, how many times do I get called not a Christian by the Clown Car Posse? And I think Phony Beetle Maniacs actually makes a good point, because there's a lot of things that, you know, that he is not called a Christian because of some of the stuff that he believes, and even when it comes to the atheists and all that. And I do want to try to be careful with how I address this topic, because when I said how many atheists are actually misotheists, this is not to say, like, I know I sound like a broken record here, but since I have more people listening, this is not to say like the Christians, all you guys that are atheists, you're just actually just suppressing the truth and righteousness. You're all actually misotheists and you don't know it. No, that is not what I'm trying to say. I believe there are legit atheists. There are people that do not believe that God exists, and therefore they're atheists and not misotheists. However, what I am trying to say is I wonder how many of these people that identify as atheists, not all of them, but some people that identify as atheists might actually be misotheists, but they're calling themselves atheists because it's an easier label to take. Or maybe it's more of that intellectual kind of dishonest, or just kind of trying to protect yourself intellectually. They're trying to like deny something that they believe or they think is true, but they're not going to admit it's true because I guess it hurts too much, kind of thing. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that. I don't want to ever get that impression, because I understand there are like legit atheists, but it's almost the best analogy I can use is like, you know, when you go to the doctor or whatnot, and the doctor says you have cancer, but a person doesn't want to believe they have cancer. It's like they know deep down the doctor reports right and everything, they have cancer, but they just want to say, no, I'm not going to believe that. It's painful right now.
Wow, really? Is that one of the analogies they used, or did you just come up with it?
No, I just came up with that.
Oh,
I'm just trying to explain it better. I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, you know, if a Christian ever said that to me, I'd be like, really? The doctor tells me cancer. I'm gonna be like, no, I don't have it because I mean, what?
Well,
you know what I mean?
I can kind of agree with it. Yeah, it was a poor choice on analogy, but it really is an apt one where someone is like, just because you're here heavy and you've talked about it, someone who was raised as a theist of any denomination later in life, but choosing and making that transition to a different different belief set for whatever reason. It is easier to say you're an atheist than a misotheist. Mainly, and I'll say this: when I first saw the name of the Hangout, I was like, "What the fuck is a misotheist?" I was like, I did not know what the term meant, but then once I got the answer, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense on how there would be those people out there who still at their core believe that yes, there is a God, but for this reason or another reason, fuck that bastard.
That's me. So, because I'd actually be lying if I called myself an atheist. I'm definitely a misotheist.
And those of us that don't accept the existence of a God, they think we're misotheists.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I kind of, no, don't get me wrong, I've heard it. I've heard them say the suppressed truth and unrighteousness to some of you guys.
I know we've talked about that just a little while ago, but still it just kind of boggles my mind that
and that used to bug me quite a bit back when I was a Christian on here.
I'm sorry.
I've been, sorry, and that's what I'm saying, that just used to bug me quite a bit back when I called myself a Christian on here, because I was a Christian on here like 2 years ago or so. And, well, Frank, I mean, I was a moderate Christian, so you're not going to see me, saying the same things that G-Man and that says, at least not on the same level. If I accidentally do come across as stupid back then. But the thing is that at the same time, though, it's like I didn't like it when people said, "Oh, you don't, that there's no such thing as non-believers," and it's like that doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't believe in, and I used to make this argument before when I was Christian, that I don't believe in. I don't believe in all these other gods and stuff. Doesn't mean I'm suppressing the truth about them because I'm choosing to be a Christian. It's like that doesn't make any sense. I think there's people that can not believe. If they're not given enough evidence, it's very easy to not believe.
But didn't you know those other gods, those polytheistic gods, they weren't actually gods. They were just misunderstood angels.
Yeah. But so I don't like it when people make that argument, because I do acknowledge that there are legit atheists. And
so I have a question for you, Trill.
Okay, sure.
So when you sort of went from your Christian to misotheist stage, like in that process, did your concept of God change at all, or do you still believe he's the same God you believed in when you were a Christian? Do you know what I mean? Like, is your concept of him the same?
What do you mean by concept? I mean, I view it different. I don't know.
So, because for me, what happened is, as I started to question the Bible and started to question everything, I had to reinvent God. So the God I believed in, that concept kept changing, and he went from I don't know, a God I just believed in because I was told, and then he went to I started to think maybe he was kind of a jerk, but then I realized, no, that can't be right. So I made him a super loving God that sent everybody to heaven, and then I turned him into something more deistic. And so that's why I can't be a misotheist, because I find it's easier to simply change my concept of God into something that I could than it is to.
The only problem with that is that I feel like if I were to just change my concept, I'd be being dishonest with myself.
Right.
That's what I did for quite a while.
Yeah.
As my Keefe's identity, if you remember that.
Yeah.
That was me back when I was a Christian, and to try to make it fit my paradigm as a more moderate Christian, I'd end up having to make a whole bunch of excuses for myself why I was allowed to do this, why I was allowed to do that, Why
Right.
cursing wasn't a problem for me. Why I could hang out with atheists and not be at the clown car posse 24/7 on the Hangouts.
Right.
And rather than trying to make those different excuses, I found that it was a lot easier to basically say, you know what? There isn't a whole lot of evidence to support my interpretation or reinvention of God. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that supports, in my opinion, that if God's real, he's probably like how the CCP views him.
Well, yeah.
And
So
I don't think I can get behind worshiping a God like that.
I'm only saying that because it was so easy for me to do it at first, right? Like my brain would just switch things. And that's what made me realize that that's how human brains work. Like I saw the psychology behind it, and that's what made me realize that there was no God, that everyone had their own ideas of what God was. There was no one single concept that everyone agreed on. And so that's kind of why I know what you're saying, right? Like it might seem dishonest, but what I'm saying is that from a psychological point of view, it was perfectly honest. It was exactly how my human brain worked, if that makes sense.
No, I understand. Like, I understand why you'd go down that road. It's just that for me, I felt that if I were to do that, I would just be making excuses. Like, I wouldn't be being legit. Like, I could have gone down that route further and further until I was some sort of weird pantheistic hippie kind of thing. But I could have gone down that route if I really wanted. But it's like, at that point, it's like, I'm not even worshiping the same God anymore.
Exactly.
Like, it's not even described in the Bible. Like, this is not even biblical anymore.
Exactly.
So either way, I'm still not a Christian.
Well, and that's just it. The last step of changing God over and over and over again to make him work, right? The last step of that is just to not believe in him anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. I don't want to try. When it comes to the God thing, is that I don't think that was. I'm not just going to try and make something work.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't about trying to make it work. Well, it was because I couldn't believe in it the way it was. Like I wasn't.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't like a desire to make God better. It was a desire to make it possible. Right. So just to keep God real, like to make it possible, I had to change him.
Oh, okay. So
that's
it
what I'm
was
saying.
an unbelievable things for me. See, for me, it wasn't about being unbelievable. I mean, the God that I was raised with and all that still seems pretty believable to me. Like, say what you want about, like some of the logical inconsistencies or whatnot. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. So whatever these changes would come up, I've seen, hopefully God's not like that. But it was more of a moral or my own personal values kind of thing that would make me want to change who God was or whatnot. And when you're approaching it from that kind of angle, that you're not really being intellectually honest there. You're just trying to change your God to suit your own agendas.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. No, and it wasn't.
And that's just not me being honest with myself. It's like, you know what? It's like, screw it. The God is how they describe it is, and that obviously does not line up with my own morals.
No, it sounds to me like, like you're definitely different than me in that regard then. I mean, I didn't, and like I said, I didn't change it just to suit, myself. Right. It wasn't about morality or anything like that. It was really about like the logical implications of how can it work. Yeah. So. Yeah,
and I think that see, here's the thing. This is another reason why I think some of these, like the whole I know it's talked about to death, but the evolution versus creationism thing, for an example. The thing with that is that is not what got me to stop being a Christian or whatnot. And I want to stress this point because a lot of Christians like to say, that if you get educated by the sciences and all, that's what gets people to stray away from God and all this kind of stuff, right? The science type stuff wasn't a breaking point for me or whatnot. In fact, the science stuff, you could even argue, maybe that's at the time, like a year ago or so, that's what made my faith stronger. It's like, well, God's so powerful that he could have actually used evolution to create the life and the various forms that we have and all that. And maybe that the universe is so mystical and everything that there still can be a natural cause, yet a supernatural cause at the same time. Like they're not contradicting with each other. And I think this is an important point because a lot of people like to say, evolution or whatnot. Like that's what gets, people away from God and they want to be their own God, stuff like that. Well, guess what? I'm a living example that, the science is not what got me away from God. All right. It wasn't the science that got me to go on my own journey or whatnot. It wasn't learning more about how the universe worked that got me to go on my own journey. No, it was more of a moral and values kind of thing. You know, the core being, like the things that make us who we are, like our values, what our interests are, what we want to do with our lives. That was more the thing that got me to start thinking about God differently and then lead me to the state where I am.
That was the first step for me too. I remember sitting in church one day and the preacher going on and on about Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and these two guys at the back of the church that were visiting got up and walked out, and I thought, you know, I don't really want to be a part of this. That was the start of it.
Right. And I think that's that's a subject that I think that's more people should understand this, is that when people turn away from the faith or whatnot, that, again, it's not always atheistic, it's not always about not having a reason to believe, but every now and then, like, sometimes it's just about morals and values, and sometimes you just have to, at least for me, it's like there's certain things that, you know what, I can't agree with the Bible on this part. And what do you know? I can't agree with the Bible on another part. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Here's a whole bunch of things in this book I'm supposedly following that I don't even like, that I don't even agree. You know, I don't think it should be this way. And it got to the point where it's like, you know, I was basically calling myself a Christian just out of fear, because, you know, I didn't want to go to hell or whatnot. And it got to the point where it's like, you know what? If I'm not even following the book, and it's already clear that I kind of dislike God at this point, I'm not going to keep calling myself Christian, because obviously I'm not one. So I guess I'm a Misotheist then, because you're not for him, you're against him. And I don't feel like if I were to keep calling myself a Christian, keep my old identity, it's like that's not me being honest with myself at that point. Yeah. That's me just trying to delude myself.
Can I say something though? For me, I am a theist, a Christian. I used to be a young Earth creationist until I heard about old Earth creationism. Hugh Ross talking about the improbable planet.
I know about Hugh Ross too.
Yeah. But it wasn't. For me, it wasn't ever really I mean, I started backsliding until finally I got sick of, singing in vain, standing up in church and singing these hymns that I really didn't appreciate. And it wasn't until but it was never about fear. Like, I never feared about, I have to be a Christian if I want to go to heaven. I don't want to be. I was never in a sense of fear. It was more of what brought me back was the absolute, the wonder, the gracious, the miracle, not the miracles, but like the overall context of how God worked, and how I see it today. I don't articulate this as well as General does, but I have a very similar view as General and Richard and all of them, except for
I heard about his view.
I take a full reasons to believe view instead of a half and half biologos. I don't see, in my experiences, I haven't seen a whole lot of evidences for like the chemical evolution and the macroevolution, and I'm not opposed to it, but I just haven't seen enough evidences of it,
right,
for me to really accept it. Because I finally come to the conclusion that even if evolution is true, it wouldn't really make a difference. So it's not about that. It's not about the sciences like you. It was more about like the wonders in my personal own life that no other person, even if somebody lives with me, they would not see it. It's a personal experience that like you have to you think about. You sit down and think about like what has happened in your life that it's hard to say. it's really hard to articulate. Like, I'm not as good as these other guys, and I'm just coming out here for the first time. But I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not supposed to be a writer sometimes, unless I write it out. I'm not the good with coming up with words on the fly and that either to say. So, for articulating my thoughts, I'm still practicing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming on here to do. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts in my head. What you were saying really triggered a lot of thoughts, but I can't bring them out.
Well,
yeah, I know.
I relate to what you're saying though, because I used to be there. It's like, I think about the Bible and what's in it, what I learned from it at that time when I had that mindset, or whatever you want to call it, when I believed. And it was like I could be outside and looking up at the night sky, and just think, wow, he did all of this, and it was like just an amazement or wonderment, at that time that I'm accepting that God actually made all of this and did all the stuff in the Bible to help us, learn about Him and other stuff like that. It's an amazing feeling when you're there. Of course, no more. But I had a question. Is it Trill?
Yeah, that's me.
Trill.
Yeah.
How long has it been that you've had this position, the Misotheist thing?
I want to say about. I'm trying to think about when I first started calling myself that. Yikes! I want to say about maybe 6 months now.
Well, the reason
because for a while I just quit calling myself a Christian. I just considered myself like nothing, like no label, nothing. And even to an extent, I still don't like to give myself a label, but it's like it just makes things a little bit easier when you're in this community, so people can know where you're coming from. Just give yourself a label, because it's like they asked you these questions, and it's like, I'll just call myself that. Makes it fun, and it's not technically wrong. So.
Do you think you'll stay that way?
Me? Stay?
Yeah. Because 6 months to me just seems like such a tiny amount of time. It took me 10 years. So.
Personally, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, shoot. I mean, like being honest with you guys, like I'm only 21, so who knows what will happen in that time. So it's very possible that I'll change to a different position, but I can't predict the future.
The reason I asked, trying to remember this stuff. I mean, this was like, oh gosh, let's see, I'm 63 now. I was in my early 20s, 40-something years ago, maybe 35, 40. Well, anyway, there was this time, a couple of months maybe, where I think that I actually was kind of in your position, but not as strong. Where I regretted the time and whatever I put into it and emotion and whatever. But then I kind of felt resentful too. But I think it was different because I was resenting that I had accepted this to begin with and swallowed it hook, line, and sinker and really believed in it and rejoiced in the knowledge and all that stuff. And that made me resentful, maybe towards God if I still believed at that time, or just towards the system, the belief system or whatever. I felt a lot of resentment. And sometimes when I get into discussions about religion on here, I kind of get a little angry at times because I'm having flashbacks back to those times when I thought it was real and maybe it's still kind of real. Why aren't you answering or something? And I'm like, kind of
right.
But I think it lasted just a couple of months, and then I just kind of went just on auto, I guess, as far as God was concerned. There were some times when I would think about what I used to believe, and it would kind of start creeping up on me a little bit or something. Maybe conversations with close friends, and then I think back on what my life used to be like. But then I also remember why I left. So there's like no urging or tugging to go back into it. I don't think there really has been. If there was, it didn't last long.
Right. Does anyone else have the external chat? Because Hunter Bailey's been trying to join and I can't add him because it won't give me the external chat.
What do you mean?
The external chat for this particular Hangout. Because Hunter's been trying to join. And for some reason links won't work for him.
Oh.
And I can't, yeah.
It's on that little green pop-up thing. You know, like up at the top of your top left, right of your browser, it's a little green circle for Hangouts.
Yeah.
Did he try that?
Because
you've got the link there.
For some reason it won't let me. Okay, let's see if that works. And okay, well, I tried adding him a different way. Because it won't give me the external chat. Because, you know, usually if you're in a Hangout, it has like the external chat. And then,
try the one I just put in the side chat here.
Well, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, if the link doesn't work, you can try copying and pasting it into the address bar too.
Yeah.
Or reboot, close all of your browser windows.
Either way, I don't want to get caught up in all the technicals.
Hey, Trill, I got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Are you, for the concept of God that you do have, are you afraid of any kind of like punishment or retribution?
Yeah.
In that God?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, shoot, if I'm human, I'm not going to pretend like something that's going to torture you for all time is not going to be scary. Shit.
Isn't enough for you to cause you to worship this concept of God that you have?
No. See, the problem is that I don't believe you can worship something. You can force yourself to worship something that you purely like disgust. And if you honestly feel something, some way about somebody or whatnot, and they force you. Here's the thing. I feel like you could be forced to serve somebody, but you can't be forced to love them. Like, I think it's impossible to force somebody to love somebody. And with that being said, it would just like sure, I could follow in the motions and sure I could do my best to just serve God or whatnot, but I honestly feel like, you know, if God really is all-knowing, all-powerful and everything, he's going to know that the intent's not genuine. And I'd probably just get sent to hell anyways. Because I already don't love God. I would just be following him out of fear.
So in your concept of God, that God requires love.
Yeah. Yeah. It says to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and all that. Doesn't say you just follow him.
All right, just curious.
I don't think he's supposed to be viewed as a tyrant.
I was also wondering if anyone else you know has expressed like a similar position as yours, because you know
almost
you brought this up as like, you know, how many people who say they're atheists for some sort of convenience reason, right? Okay. Yeah. Well,
there's 3 different examples I could bring up, which just kind of sparked why I wonder how many people are actually misotheists. 3 and 2 of them are in this community. One of them is not. So the first person is somebody that I kind of met through Google Plus. They knew me from my old channel and they themselves do not believe in the Christian God, but they said that if somehow someone was to convince them that this God exists, that wouldn't be enough for them to worship him because they think that this God's like bad or too strict or whatever. So already it's like he's not a misotheist right now, but if someone were to convince him to bring him the evidence so that he would not be able to deny that there's a God, then he would kind of just make himself a misotheist.
I'd probably fall into that category too.
So, and 2 other people I'll bring up without mentioning names here. I don't want to start drama, but 2 people, you'll probably just guess who they are just because their actions. Just keep it to yourselves. But one of them is you probably don't know him a whole lot, but I've done like a show with him before. We've done it on Fridays. And I feel like just the way he feels about religion and that sometimes, like his very aggressive nature, him wanting to always debate these people and stuff and argue with them and all that. I feel like if it's something you truly just disbelieve and there's nothing to it, you just don't believe it, I feel like that's a lot of emotional energy and weight to have on something that you just disbelieve. Like that's a lot of time and energy to put into that kind of thing. And the last person I'll mention, he's actually got to the point where he actually starts, quote unquote, because I don't want to sound like one of those people that thinks everything is cyberbullying, but stalking some of these theists in the community online to the point where, you know, he kind of trolls them and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, he gets so aggressive with these people, you know, hoping that they die and stuff. It's like, that doesn't sound like just disbelief to me. That sounds like there's an emotional response there. Like there's something that seriously sets them off emotionally about what these people profess to believe and all that kind of stuff. And to me, I find it sometimes hard to believe that some of these people, when they do this stuff, that these kind of people are simply just not believing. I feel like some of these people, it's like, you know, there might be something there, like they just really hate God and they really hate the rules. And I don't blame them. I'm like that. But to call themselves atheists, like they just simply don't believe in a God, like, I don't know, it just feels, I don't know, maybe disingenuous, or they just don't want to call themselves Misotheists, or they don't know the term. Like,
yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't want to defend anyone, especially someone I don't know, but I would say for a lot of atheists, there is a certain, or there can be a certain leftover anger or frustration wherein they felt like their community had lied to them. And so that sort of angry atheist trope comes up a lot, I think, for those reasons. I still don't think it's justifiable, but I find that that's a lot of times where it comes from. And then, you know, as far as hating the concept, if it were to be proved to be real, I mean, I think a lot of people would be in that category. If you could tomorrow show me some definitive evidence the real thing and all the stories in the Bible were true, I'd be in the same position that you are right now of belief, but dislike. I just don't believe.
No, I get that, and that's a position too. That's another thing I have thought about. Obviously, it's just, I don't know, like, I know this feels very accusatory when I put it out there, like how many atheists are actually Misotheists, but in reality, it's more of a thought that it's more of like a mind sort of thing that I've honestly thought about, because I've thought about some of this stuff, and it's like, you know what? Like, I just wonder, like, how many of these people, you know, might just be like me, but they're not going to call themselves a Misotheist. They don't know the term, or they just want to call themselves an atheist just to make things easier, you know? Because it might be easier just to say, oh, I don't believe in this stuff, than to try to defend yourself from a position where you can admit that you believe in the things, but you don't like it. Like, it's a lot easier position to put yourself in some ways when you're arguing on here. But at the same time, just being honest with myself, because I can't speak for others, and calling myself a Misotheist, it's like, it actually makes some of the arguments a lot easier, I think, to have with some of these theists, because you don't have to go through that whole, oh, how can you know what you know kind of thing with it. You don't have to do that, because it's like, you know what, I have the same basis, God. Yeah, he gave me those senses and that too. I just don't agree with his morality. So I don't have to deal with that kind of.
Why do you believe in God then? Like, do you rely on faith?
I believe in God because, first of all, I believe that there's some supernatural things that I don't believe are best explained by there being a God. And I know that's an interesting conversation to get into. That's a whole other topic, whether the supernatural exists or not. But I believe it does. And from my experiences, from the antidotes in that, I will say that from what I know, it does seem to line up a lot with Christian theology and what I've been taught. has seemed to ring true from a lot of these supernatural experiences and what they mean. And as far as just on the basis, like for instance, I'll just bring up an example. Like, for instance, just the whole thing with demons. When people have like demonic attacks and stuff, possession. Well, demonic possession happens in the Bible, and that's when people are having a demonic encounter. That it seems very reminiscent of what the Bible says, and the fact that these demonic possessions are cured when somebody says, "In the name of Jesus," or "I rebuke you in Jesus' name." There's something out there. It's like if any old deity, or if there's anything worked, whatnot, you could say anything. Or you should have some sort of weird sort of magical item that can get rid of demons, but that's not the case. It's so these very select words.
I don't want to like be kind of rude here, but would you say that believing in those things, like you desire to believe in those things? Like,
no, I do not. Trust
you don't?
Me. No.
Okay.
I do not desire to believe in demons. It'd make my life a whole lot easier if there was no supernatural. Trust me.
Because I was brought up like believing in all of these, miracles and supernatural things, and,
right. And I
don't anymore at all. Like, I just find all of them to be like, I don't know, they're either fraudulent or it's wishful thinking or it's, so I don't know. Like, I guess I disagree with you on there being any supernatural. So that's interesting.
Right. As far as the miracles and that goes, I mean, here's the thing. I understand there's always a chance, some people, they might make up things. I don't just fall for everything I read. But I think there's something to be said about legit experiences where some of these people, now I get a little more skeptical when somebody, has a book or something and they're trying to make money off of something. But, when people actually have genuine experiences, like they might be sharing it, like, whether word of mouth or online on a forum, it's like I look at this stuff and it's like, in my opinion, and again, it's going to be different depending on the scenario, but it's like they have no reason to lie. And their experience in that seemed to line up a lot with what I know already. And it's like some of the events that they explain, it's like they are unexplainable any other way except by some sort of like miracle or like divine intervention or some sort of demon or whatnot. Like, I can't explain it another way. There's some things where I can go, okay, this is this scientifically. Or, the whole sleep paralysis thing, this is a hypnagogic hallucination, like Steve McRae likes to believe in that. But other things, there's some things I can't account for. And if I were just trying to explain it scientifically, it's like I'd just be lying to myself. Because, the true answer is I don't know. And I lean more towards that it's probably something supernatural. That's just where my brain goes.
And I think the more I learn about science, the more I just discover really, really crazy things. And so I become less and less convinced of a supernatural, because, like, have you ever heard of blind sight? There are people that are blind. They can't see anything. They can't even see light. Right. But if you throw a ball at their face, they'll duck.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, and it's actually perfectly scientifically explainable, because it's not that their eyes aren't working. It's that the conscious part of their brain that sees things doesn't work, but the sight still works, and the primary processing part of the brain still works.
Well, it might have something to do with sound as well, even though we're not bats, but it's like I've heard like people that are blind, they cannot see. If they're walking through a room that they're unfamiliar with, it's like they know there's a wall right there in front of them. It's kind of like something with the sound or something.
Well, with blind sight, it's an extremely rare condition. It's basically people that have had some sort of brain damage in a certain part of their brain, right? Like, and they've tested it, and it's ridiculous. But I mean, you hear about stuff like that, and then we find a scientific explanation, and the more I learn about little things like that, it's so easy to rule out the supernatural when we don't know something.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Hunter is wanting to say something, but I just want to bring up a little thing.
Yeah, Hunter, since you're finally in the call, if you want to say something, you can.
I just want to bring up one little thing, Trill. Like for me, when my faith began to fade, I tried to hang on to it. I didn't want to, but it went anyway, no matter how much I tried to cling to it or try to pull it back. That's why I was going to churches, trying to find something that might be missing. So for you, would you rather that your
For me, it's the opposite.
Yeah, would you rather that your faith did go away?
Yeah.
That
It'd be awesome if it could, but that's just not me being honest with myself. I can't just call myself an atheist. Well, I could, but I'd be lying.
Yeah, and see, that proves a good point that people
That's
say
why. Okay, go ahead.
You have to believe, or you can kind of make yourself believe, or you're an atheist because you made yourself not believe. It doesn't work that way.
No,
it's just
it doesn't.
Something that happens up here.
Right. That's actually exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say this is why I don't believe you can choose what you believe.
Right.
I honestly don't, because I'm living proof of that. Yeah. If I could, I'd like to not believe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up because I wasn't sure if it had actually been discussed.
Yeah, but you don't choose what you believe. Instead, you don't choose what you believe. You choose where you research. You choose how much of it you research. You choose whether you want to look into something more or not. Those are the things I believe you have control over, where you get your research from, and how much time you actually want to invest into looking for the answers of whether there's a God or not, or whether this scientific principle is true or not. But there is definitely, you cannot choose what you believe. You can only choose how you research and what you research and how much of it you want to get into or whatnot. You can choose to be ignorant in the sense that you can choose not to look into something, or you just want to let somebody else tell you what's true or whatnot, or just believe like your own echo chamber. But you don't choose what you believe at the end of the day, because if your brain is convinced of something, it's convinced. And it's only until somebody cannot convince you of that thing anymore that you're going to stop believing that thing. Or if your brain was never convinced of it in the first place, your brain's not convinced of it in the first place. So there you go. So I don't believe that you can choose what you believe. So when Christians that say, oh, you're choosing not to believe in God, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't come from somebody that does believe in God and I'm technically doing the suppress the truth and unrighteousness thing. You don't choose what you believe. Instead, you choose how much research that you want to get into it. So if I had to say one thing that would be controversial to some of the atheists that here, it'd be, you're not choosing to not believe in God, but you are choosing how much you actually look into it.
Yeah, wouldn't you choose how much research you put into it, though?
Yeah, you choose how much research you put into it.
So therefore, you kind of do have a choice.
No, you're not choosing to believe it, though, because it honestly depends on what you've looked at and everything, and if your brain is convinced of the evidence. Some people are convinced by some things, and others are not convinced by other things.
Well, it's a bit muddier because you also would choose which sources you deem reliable and which ones you would go to.
Yeah, and in a sense, you would have to choose the one with less holes in it, the one that to be more considered rational.
Right, and that actually kind of varies depending on the person sometimes.
Yeah, for me, I've been raised around a lot, so it's kind of like you could say I was indoctrinated or not, but it was like it was always there. And it was kind of like when I was young and wild and crazy in my teen years, I'm like, well, yes, I believe he's there, but I'm not ready to,
Hey, I'll be right back.
Give up all this wild fun. I'm young, I can get in touch with him later. So it's like, I knew he was there, but I'm like, I'm not ready yet. And then one day I was ready. So,
hey, I'll be right back.
Then lost it.
Right.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, and
my phone's about to die. I'll be right back.
But I think this is another thing, because just to touch on what Shar said, it's like oh, sorry, are you still talking? Oh, okay, never mind, he has to go. No. But anyways, just touch on what Shar said before. No, I think it was Heavy. Somebody said it about believing about wanting to hold on to your religion or whatnot. Yeah, that was Heavy. He wanted to say about for me, it's like I'm not trying to hold on. It's just that my brain has not been convinced that it's not true. Like, exactly. I'm trying to push it away. It'd be awesome if I could just be an atheist. It just make my life so much easier. I don't have to think about this stuff anymore. I have like goals and stuff I'm trying to get accomplished, and still believing in what I believe can sometimes really hinder me in trying to complete my goals. But yeah, at the same time, yeah, like I'm not, again, it's like I'd like to get rid of it, but you know, I can't just like that. So I think another thing that I'll just mention that kind of bothers me when people say stuff like, you know, like, oh, you can just you know, quit believing or whatnot. It's like, oh, you can quit believing those myths. They're all myths anyways. Like, well, I haven't been convinced that they're myths. They still seem pretty legit to me. All I've been convinced of is that they don't line up with my values, and therefore I'm not going to worship the God. But it seems pretty legit for me, you know. And I'll still argue for the legitimacy of them because I still think it's real. But I'm not going to argue that it's, you know, it's the right way to live or whatnot, because
yeah, in the little pop-up thing for the Hangouts, you said something about, you know, you was trying to get me to come in and I didn't want to. You said you can learn something, and I said, well, you know, I finally came in and I am learning some new stuff. I've never really looked, you know, thought of like what you're going through, and I'm like thinking, oh gosh, that must be a real mind, whatever, you know, that you're going through sometimes.
Yeah, of course. It is. And I will admit it's, I know you can't choose what you believe, but let me just say this, Misotheism is not for the lighthearted. And that's rich coming from me because I am a pretty lighthearted person at times, despite me wanting to take pretty sadistic jabs at people for their pseudoscience and that. But yeah, it's not for the lighthearted. And I will say it does get hard or whatnot. But all I'm really, because some people are thinking, oh, are you just trying to do this for shock value or whatnot? It's like, no, this is me being the most honest with myself. This is like the position that if I'm just saying what I believe and try to give myself a label, and I hate labels, by the way, but if I had to give myself a label, that would be the closest one to like where my position that comes from when it comes to theology.
Okay, we're all in trouble now. Ozzy Mandius is in the chat. He'll probably come in and go, okay, boys and girls, let me tell you what it's really all about.
Well, hey, I don't mind. See, I don't try to approach it from a philosophical angle. I'm not philosophically minded. You usually see me stay out of a lot of those philosophical hangouts. That's not my thing. I'm not philosophy. And I'm not even saying that my position's even logical either. It's just that's how I feel.
I think from what you've said, I think your position seems pretty honest at this point. I personally, if I had to guess, I think your position will change over time, but I mean, whose doesn't, right?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that.
Yeah. But I mean, you're being honest with yourself, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I actually applaud you for being honest about it.
And you know what? I was going to be, okay, sorry, keep going.
To me, it sounds like, again, I don't want to assume things that are not true, but just from what you're saying is, it sounds like somebody's missing from that. Somebody that could really make an influence in your life. It's not there. It sounds like there is a person that could be there that could help you understand these subjects a little bit better. But
Thanks for your sentiments, but I'm pretty sure I do have a father and a mother.
Well,
I know you weren't going there.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like
my father never loved me. No, it's not like that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like not any particular person, like a relational person, or even a friend. Just there's a lot that can be said about the topics you've raised, but it takes somebody with better articulate skills than I have to really bring you the answers that you want to hear.
Hey, welcome to the club. I'm struggling to be articulate right now. If I don't write it out, it's really hard for me to be articulate. I try. This is good practice for me, having to do things off the cuff.
Same here.
Yeah. So I do apologize for trying to host this if I don't seem articulate. I'm just trying to find the words. It's like, man, it'd be so nice if I had a script. I can't have a script if I'm improvising. But yeah. No, I think I understand what you're trying to say. You're trying to say like maybe I'm missing a certain type of person that could have been a good influence or whatnot in my life. as far as like, or somebody to talk to about these kind of things, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that. Like, I'm not saying
like a mentor kind of figure.
Well, not even like a mentor, like nobody in particular. More like a person. Just it could have been a friend. It could have most likely been a friend.
Okay.
But it could have been a friend, a father, mother, a youth pastor, somebody. It just could have been somebody. Because I know I've had a couple of people that made quite an impact. I mean, in my life, even after I rejected young Earth creationism, I tended to I fell away from young Earth creation because I didn't. It was just all in vain. It was all meaningless, and it was because, honestly, it was because of Hugh and General and my desire to actually want to learn more about, what is true, what is fact, what is science, what is not science, what is philosophy. I just wanted to learn the truth, and it's brought me this. It's ultimately just brought me here to hear your story, because that's my ultimate goal. Is I want to hear everybody's story. I want to hear Heavy's story. I want to hear Steve's story. I want to hear everybody's story, even the people I personally deal with. I want to hear their stories.
Right.
So, and compare what I've noticed in my life, and being patient and listening, and not just audio input, but context, in life in context. So an overview of life. So I mean that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I mean, I'm still learning what everybody's views are, but I have from my personal experiences, this is where I stand.
Okay. Yeah.
I know some people out there on the YouTube chat are like, no, I disagree with you. But yeah, I know everybody disagrees with everybody. So
what do they disagree with?
Herman, he's something about self-journey.
Benefit from silence. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say either. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So Trill, I wondered what kind of church did you grow up in?
That's a good question, because unlike some of these people who are very technical about what they call themselves, I didn't have a special Christian label. I didn't call myself like a Baptist or I think our family was just non-denominational, and we kind of went to so many different churches. I mean, I think my family's a little bit of evangelical, well, at least my mom especially, evangelical Pentecostal leanings.
Yeah.
More of an emphasis on the Holy Spirit, but I mean, we didn't really call
were you like Bible literalists? Were you taught that evolution was a lie, sort of thing?
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, I was definitely taught that. Yeah, I was a creationist for pretty much 17 or 16 years of my life.
See, that's interesting too, because so you recognize now that that's not true, right? Right. So there are parts of your faith,
or if it is true, they have not presented good evidence for it.
But so there's parts of what you've been taught that you kind of recognize now as untrue or a lie or whatever, but other parts you still believe.
Right.
That doesn't discredit the whole story to you?
No, of course. Again, this is not about beliefs.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. I was just wondering, because for me, I was brought up the same, evolution is a lie, and so when I discovered it wasn't, I had to start questioning everything.
Yeah, that didn't happen, because the worst that happened is honestly on my dad's side, because my dad actually and my mom find a little bit differently about the whole Bible literal thing. My mom just kind of likes to read the text kind of as is, and if it says something, it says something without really looking too much into it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
My dad is a little more open-minded about the kind of thing. I say a little more because he still doesn't accept evolution to the full extent that Steve McCrane and them do, but he does accept it to an extent. So not quite macro evolution, but like micro. And he's more of an old Earth creationist. He's not young Earth. He thinks young Earth is dumb. But
Gotcha. So then maybe, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense too.
and even for a while, I leaned heavily on old Earth creation. Like, shoot, even if I'm being really honest with myself, even right now, what I believe would be like a toss up between evolution or old Earth creation. I can't do the young Earth thing. There's too much out there that stops it from being a young Earth. But
yeah, gotcha.
maybe old Earth could be true still. Like, I don't know. Like the old Earth creation doesn't seem too far off.
I just don't know how you fit evolution into it. That's where I don't. That's where I get stuck. Like even like Jade and Fiona and like they know their science. But I
think
don't
the way you
quite
fit it.
know
Oh, well,
how
okay.
they do it.
This is actually quite simple because back when I was a Christian, this is how I did it. With the Bible, depending on what translation you read, some translations actually do not say, they don't say that they don't make it seem like it happened in a week. Instead, they make it seem more like it happened on like 6 separate days rather than 6 days in a row. Now, some Bibles, when you read it that way, that's what it makes it seem like. But others, like the New American Standard Version, it doesn't read that way. And reading it that, you get a different picture of how, the creation thing went down. And
It's not
also
even-
the word day,
Yeah.
when you translate or whatnot, I don't know if you heard about this, but the word day, Hebrew is yom.
Yeah.
And that can mean anything from a day to like a decade to an eon.
No, but see, all of that is fine. I just don't know how the process of evolution plays out. Like how evolution doesn't work towards a goal. So I don't understand how you end up with humans through evolution, unless it was determined from the beginning and everything had to be the way it was.
Well, here's the thing: we all already from a
there
naturalist
is a goal. There is a little bit of a goal to evolution, and it falls under the adaptation, which is the small scale of it. Is every organism wants to make the most of its environment, of its situation.
Sure,
and that's
but-
actually what sparked it. So the goal of evolution is to be the best you are for the conditions you are in. You need to change to adapt, or you're gone. So there is a goal there.
Sure, I'm just saying if you were to rewind and do it all over again from the first life on Earth, if you were to do that 10 times, you'd get 10 completely different results. You wouldn't get humans, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Not
So
as
that's
we know
why-
them, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So
See,
that's where I get lost.
Okay, well, I think that's where, and this is actually relates to another post I put on the Great Debate community, where intelligent design with evolution working together. I still think that, in a sense, that God could have used evolution to create certain beings with a certain sort of structure that looks. Because you're thinking, it looks very structured, like the life that we have today doesn't look all over the place. We're not these weird monstrosities. We have symmetry and everything. So I still feel like God could have used evolution to create things that look, I guess, aesthetically pleasing, and they look very much creatively and intelligently designed. And I don't see where the two. I understand that the theory of intelligent design is actually something totally different. But I don't. Again, that doesn't really strike me as.
Yeah, and I still don't get that because there's no mechanism.
What do you mean?
Well, there's no mechanism. Like, how does God interfere? What does he do?
Easy through the evolution process.
So essentially, he set it all in motion, and it just happened the way it happened.
Yeah, because he's God.
He's puppet master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that goes actually to an idea that popped in my head earlier listening to you of God. Well, ask yourself this question. If God was truly there and this is his great, let's just look at the Bible. Let's just look at what is his word on earth. Why would he let it get so fucked up? Why would he let it get so misused without intervening?
Why would he let the word
Yes.
get so misused?
Yes.
Okay. I think I see what you're asking.
Why would he let his message get so misused and so diluted if he was truly there?
Quite frankly, the answer, I think, and again, I'm not trying to play apologist for God, because I do think that is kind of stupid how it turned it out that way. But I think the answer you're probably going to get from me and even other Christians is probably the whole fact about free will. He's not going to interfere with humans' ability to misuse the word of God in their own ways and do things with it that he didn't intend for it to do. Like, you get like extreme pastors and stuff like that in the Westboro Baptist Church and all that. He's still going to let people have their free will and do what they're going to do. However,
if you take the Bible as his literal history, he has intervened multiple times.
Yeah, in the past, he doesn't have to do it now.
If he's done it before, what's stopping him from doing it now?
Nothing.
Especially in a time when it is so perverted.
He doesn't want to or doesn't need to.
Right. Those are the kind of answers you'll get. And even from me, I'd say that he doesn't want to. And the other answer I'll say is that perhaps he is interfering in other ways that just we don't know about. Just not as direct.
That was something I've thought about recently, in the past couple of years since I joined the community. Why do we have all these different translations, or why do we have all these different denominations or religions? And I said, well, yeah, free will. He's going to give us free will. No, if the message was that important, if it was that vital to get the correct message to his creation, he would have stopped these things.
I guess it fulfills Bible prophecy, because doesn't it not say that there will be?
No, I'm saying, even that wouldn't be in there. I mean, the Bible would be his actual, for real, revealed word with no question, no other translations or no other denominations or interpretations. But it would be one solid belief system. But even then, we would still have free choice to accept it or deny it. I don't see that it would interfere with free choice.
It does have like a verse already where there's going to be false preachers and stuff. So I mean, there kind of needs to be a whole bunch of denominations so that part of the book is fulfilled. Now, again, the stupid part is that why does it even have to be in there in the first place? But since it is in there, you kind of have to have what's going on now, where there's like cults and like offshoots of Christianity and Black Hebrew Israelites and all that stuff. So there kind of has to be that, or that part of the Bible is not true. If I remember that verse correctly, like where there will be false prophets and stuff.
Christopher has been awful quiet. I'm starting to worry.
Just waiting for the right moment to growl.
There we go.
Yeah, but
I think to the point that was being made about interpretations that that from our perspective as atheists cause all the different denominations. The funny part for me is, and not everyone needs to be consistent, but the inconsistency.
Right.
What's that?
Right, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think it disproves God's existence.
Oh, no, that's not my point. My goal is not to disprove God's existence. I'm just making an observation. And that observation is that some of those denominations adhere to what they consider a literal translation of the Bible.
Right.
And that in itself is an interpretation. And that seems to kind of go well beyond their ability to understand that taking it literally in the way that they do goes against the literal translation that other people have that are adhering to the same criteria that is different than all of the other people that think that they're adhering to the literal translation. Right. And that's, that is a subdivision of the denominations, because some people don't take it literally. And of course, those are, they're free to interpret it however they want because they freely admit that they're interpreting it. But what the people who are claiming for a literal translation, I'm not accusing anybody here of that, but this is what it brings to mind: the fact that there are interpretations of it, and one of them is a literal interpretation. Built into that is the word interpretation. I think that is,
I think that's,
from an atheist, a funny observation.
I think the quote unquote literal translation is misguided. Reason why because here's the thing, And Wayne Fillmore actually makes this point. It's like, technically, you know, even someone like him is more of a reasonable Christian. He's still interpreting it literally. It's just that the problem is that, first of all, it's not, the thing was written in English, okay? But a lot of Christians like pretend like the thing was written in English, so it's translated perfectly. We have the perfect translation that, you know, the words converted from the original Greek and Hebrew into English, mapped out perfectly to like the King James or whatever that we have today. And they read it like such. They don't bother to look back at what the original Greek or Hebrew actually said and what they meant by some of these certain things. So therefore, that's where some of these literal, biblical literalists get it wrong. They read it like God wrote it in English. And I think that's a wrong way of doing it already. So already that's a flawed way of looking at it. And then besides, on top of that,
but you're demonstrating my critique.
Okay.
Right? You are claiming that the literal interpretation that some people have isn't the right literal interpretation. Therefore, it's not literal because it's not the Aramaic interpretation, literally, or the Greek that it was translated to, or the Latin, or the English, right? All of a sudden, we have all these layers to an onion, and everybody's claiming literalism.
Because you're always going to have that problem when the thing wasn't written in English in the first place. That's just a problem you have with a text. Any kind of text that's being translated into English or whatnot. Sometimes original author's intent is going to be lost because sometimes the thing with reading it literally is that we ourselves, when we write things today and we speak, we don't always speak literally. Sometimes we use a lot of colloquialisms. We use figures of speech. We speak in metaphor. We use hyperbole. We grossly exaggerate. You're trying to tell me that the authors of the Bible didn't do any of that ever? You're trying to tell me that those figures of speech were never around back in the day, that everybody spoke literally back then? No, I find that really hard to believe.
Well, like what does it mean to wash your feet?
What do you mean?
Well, I think that's my favorite thing. Well, throughout the Bible, there are multiple references of one character to another saying, "Oh, go have your wife wash your feet."
Yeah, it almost seems like it's a saying.
It's
or
a euphemism.
A sexual act.
It is. It is a sexual euphemism of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go, then.
So they were into some kinky shit.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently the whole nation of Israel was just all into foot fetish.
Hey, Chris, what you got on the Misotheist stuff?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the Misotheists are the people who hate the God concept and reject it because of that?
No, they believe God exists.
Yes.
But they don't view it as something deserving of reverence, worship, or respect. It's something to be at best ignored and at worst reviled.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that it can be denied that there are people. Well, what were you going to say, Heavy?
No, I was just repeating something that I mentioned to Trill. He said, "Come on in, you might learn something." I'm like, well, "I'm learning something new." So why y'all talking about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it can be denied that there are people who hold that belief, right? The belief that God exists and that it doesn't warrant worship in any way, shape, or form, or the way that you described it a moment ago. But I think recently in the GDC, somebody posted that, and I don't know if that person's even in this panel right now, the idea that some, if not most, atheists are Misotheists. And I think that that's a bold statement.
That was me, and that's not what I said.
Okay. Please remind me of what it is that you said.
I said that I think some atheists might actually be Misotheists.
Oh, well, when you put it that way, it sounds reasonable. Like, yeah, there might be some atheists that
yeah, if I did say most, I didn't mean to. Like, I'd have to look at my original post, but I'm pretty sure I said.
I don't have the post in front of me, and since you're the author of it, I will defer to you without a doubt. I'm going off of my flawed memory.
Okay, well, maybe again. Okay, yeah, I know. If I said most, I apologize, but just to clarify what my position is, because that was me. I mean, I am the Cyberspace Fae after all. That was probably the icon, and that was attached to it and everything. So,
and so
not.
What brought you to that conclusion? Once again, I'm not denying you or challenging you. I want to know what motivated you to make that post.
because that's how I feel. I'm a misotheist, and I wonder if there's any other people that were actually misotheists as well. And also the fact that I see very aggressive behavior from the atheists. Because here's the thing, I'll just say it out right here. When Christians in this community present like facts about the Bible, or they try to challenge science and all that, it seems like there's this huge backlash, aggressive backlash, coming from like the atheists or the skeptics camp of things. And I understand when it comes to science, yes, pseudoscience, poking fun at pseudoscience is fun, but sometimes when it comes to more the theological topics, some of the more heated things that people don't like to address, people really lose their crap with these kind of people, and they really don't like what some of these people are saying. And I wonder if it's almost because, you know, sometimes they know what some of this, they think deep down some of this stuff is true, so therefore they want to make fun of it and deny it and stuff, because not only are they angry at it, but they're angry that such a God that created everything said that as well. And I can't speak for everybody, but I know that was part of the reason why I became like a little quote-unquote troll in the external chat, because I'm a misotheist. I'm not coming at it from an atheist perspective. And I don't like the fact that God is the way he is and he'd say some of these things and all that. I'm wondering, hey, since I get so mad and aggressive or triggered, as they put it, about some of these things, I wonder how many of these atheists are feeling the same way. And then that being said, I wonder how many of these atheists are actually atheists. Because in order to get that mad about something, that's like you'd have to believe it's real to some extent.
Not really.
No. Counter to that is when you
I actually
hear
have
the
just
same stupid argument.
I have a quick meta argument against what he said, and then if you're talking about the online community, the atheists that choose to go online are a very self-selected group that want their voice to be heard. So the question that you're asking is about the people who are online that have the violent, contrarian attitude towards the ideas of theism. That is a different statement than atheists, right? Because not all atheists are online, and not all atheists online represent atheism.
And I understand that.
Okay. But I think it's worth exploring too. I think it's a good question.
Oh, and another thing, not all the vitriol that the theists get is simply because of what they're saying, and because of that view that is possible for some of the who are going against them, but more so rather a reaction to repeated stupidity. I will admit that a lot of the flat earthers that I deal with automatically get a lot of vitriol from me personally because I've heard their shtick before and they haven't changed. So it's repeated stupidity that I've had enough with. Any grace or any kindness from me.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I would also add to that because I went through it. When you first start to lose your faith and stop believing in God, a lot of us go through a stage of anger because we were lied to, you know, our whole lives, kind of thing. And I was angry. I had a hard time with that.
Oh, I understand.
And that's more of a psychological component, right? Because if you've invested yourself in any way, shape, or form into any movement that you feel that you are an activist for, getting out of that frame of mind will piss you off. You feel shamed. You know, like, why? What? I've wasted all of this time doing this, that, or the other. And then there's the other component of, if you're a vitriolic X, let's say X is Christianity, when you lose Christianity, you don't lose the vitriol. So now you're a vitriolic atheist. You're a vitriolic Y. You'll be vitriolic regardless of what opinion you have. You just happen to switch from Christianity to atheism.
Right. No, yeah, and I understand that. It's, yeah, it is kind of an interesting psychological kind of thing. I just kind of wonder that, who knows, like maybe I'm just alone in how I feel, but I kind of figured that maybe there's other people out there that were actually misotheists, but they might not call themselves that because they don't know the term, or that they don't want to call themselves misotheists because they.
I'm sure we'll run across a couple. You know, in the community.
But I also think that rhetorically atheists might be resistant to it because of the popularity of the precept argument and the fact that they claim that, you know, atheists know that God exists and just deny it. And so I'm not saying that the misotheist argument is that, but it certainly rhymes with it, right? Even if it doesn't repeat that argument, it certainly rhymes with it. And so that might be a little bit where the resistance is too.
I can't speak for all misotheists, but I would say, at least for me, that I still conclude that there are such things as atheists.
Yeah, it's like when someone comes forth as a mess of that word.
Yeah.
You know, also all the funny stuff up. Yeah, see, we was right about you.
Right.
You know, all of you.
See, I understand.
When they say you, they mean all of you. You know, they do that.
Right. See, and I understand that position. Like, I understand how, you know, it can kind of anger people because they say, "Oh, he was right" and all that. But, you know, I'm just being truthful to myself. So when I try to go in those rooms and they say, "Oh, see, we was right," it's like, no. There are still atheists. I'm only trying to represent myself here. I'm not trying to represent Heavy. I'm not trying to represent Christopher. I'm just trying to represent me. So you can make that conclusion if you want, that they're all the people you deal with in the community are basically me, but they're not.
I think that's the best. That's the best position to have coming into these arguments, right? Even though there are labels and you happen to be using a label that people aren't familiar with, regardless of labels,
I don't even like
individual. You have to speak to the individual, right? You're not talking to a label. You're talking to an individual.
Yes.
To know why they think what they think.
Right, and that's one reason I don't even like saying. I don't even like calling myself a misotheist, because then you put yourself into a box. Because if people do know what that is, again, that's a label, and they say, "Oh, they're all like this," and that's not necessarily me. So.
Well, yeah, it's like I tell it's really driving that point. I speak for myself from my experiences only. I am not speaking for anyone else.
Right.
Just leave it right there. And of course, you're going to run into those people on that other side who will insist on trying to put your views and your stance across the board. They try to generalize. And
rhetorically,
you're not
that
going to
makes
be able
sense.
to state, but be able to stop them from doing that.
And I think
I won't generalize about Christians based on the actions of one. I'll generalize based off the majority of and verbiage that I've gotten from just that, the majority of them. But I will not take what any one person says as the majority and blanket across. That's not how it works. They seem to want to do just that.
Right.
You're saying this, so it must be true for
and that's not
everyone.
But that's a heuristic, right? That's a mental shortcut. It's much easier, especially when there are Christian apologists and atheist activists, to when somebody self-labels as a Christian or an atheist, to argue against the point that the most popular apologist or activist have put forth. And that's not to be mistaken with the point that I made earlier. Just because online is a self-selected group of people that want their opinion to be heard, that doesn't necessarily mean that they agree with the most popular activist of their position.
Exactly.
Which is why I think, and I appreciate the way that you're, I'm talking to you specifically, Trill. I appreciate the way that you're approaching this. Like, this is what I think. I'm not representing anything other than my own opinion. I use this label, and it sounds like you're here to learn, which is, to me, the best way to approach these conversations, because it disarms people that want to argue with the label that you use.
I'm mainly here for entertainment, but sure, I can learn something.
I think that is the second best reason to be online. I love it.
You don't know. I find some of the pseudoscience stuff hilarious. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but yeah. So I'm actually kind of glad that the flat earther thing is becoming more mainstream in a way, because there's more material to work with.
No, the material's the same. It's just the voice is different.
Well, exactly, but they're here in the community now. Before, they just stay on their own echo chamber channels. You got people like Tex and that here now. That's awesome. So I love the fact that we got some people that are, contrarian in a way. Because it's one thing to argue with them in the live chat or whatnot. It's another thing if they can actually go into a hangout and you can hear their voice and they can hear your opinion. I know not all of them are willing to do it. A lot of them still like to be very echo chamberish, but the ones that don't, it's like, shout out to them. They can step outside their comfort zone. I've put myself in the line of fire as a Misotheist going to like Antonio's rooms and stuff where it's basically all Christians. Yeah. One guy actually lost his cool with me for even calling myself a Misotheist and everything, because he was so offended at the fact that I could even think that the Christian God's bad. So that was kind of fun.
Just point out the Old Testament.
Yeah. And then, believe it or not, in that same room, you guys are familiar with Darwin's deity, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
He's my man. He's a Jersey boy.
So Darwin's deity actually has even said that because of my Misotheist position and everything, that he felt that was the most honest position he's ever heard, like in his entire community, kind of thing.
That's because it fits his presupposition that all atheists feel that way.
Right. I understand. But
okay, I'm presupposing that. I could do
that. Yeah, don't you be a presupper now. Come on now.
No, it is a chestnut. It's, you know, the reason why you're an atheist is because you want to live in sin, and it's because you hate God. You know that he exists in your heart because of Romans, yada, yada, yada. And because of that, you know that God exists, and you just happen to hate the God that you know exists, and you want to live in sin. You want this. You want the sin. It fits into a prepackaged apologetic.
Yeah, that's not describing atheists. That's describing me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm too old and wore out to revel in my sin, except maybe for gluttony. That's about it.
Well, it changes with time, one to another. you go from pride, then you go to envy, then you go to sloth.
Okay,
so they're not the 7 deadly sins; they're a developmental phase.
Oh, that's one way of looking at it.
That's awesome.
The 7 phases of a sinner.
That used to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But
well, there would have to be an 8th phase of acceptance, right?
Yeah.
All right, you got me. I love to eat lots of good food and fornicate and.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
shoot. But no, I love pointing out, and it's not so much pointing out; it's asking a question. Anytime someone wants to point out that passage from Romans that says that everyone knows God within their heart inherently, it's just ask them the question as you about God. Oh, it was your parents, or it was this family member who brought you to the church. It's like, say that never happened. Would you still have known?
The only thing is that some people actually do come to the faith. Like G-Man was not always a Christian, and neither was my mom. So.
No, but it was still someone for some.
Even though she was technically
it wasn't
raised
an
Catholic.
inherent. In fact, it wasn't an inherent. There must be a God. It was they were introduced to it somehow.
Yeah, I think so. As an atheist, I don't think that's a very compelling argument, because you can just say that it is in the same way that there are genes that don't express until a certain age or a certain event, that genes still exist, right? So from their perspective, and I'm just trying to look at it from as many facets as possible, the belief always existed. It was just a matter of what event brought the Holy Ghost to you to flip that switch.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that when I grew up, that was never. I still don't really have a problem with that one. Like because I was basically taught, like, okay, there's going to be some tribe in Africa somewhere where they've never heard the gospel, but they know there's something. They know there's a creator. They just don't have a name for him. And in my church, that was good enough. That's what Romans meant, if that makes sense. So.
Well, but that's the thing is, it's that and it's like, honestly, if it wasn't for the church early on, and then me asking the question, it's like, why are you putting this on everyone? Why are you saying this? Why are you interjecting this? If it wasn't for them saying there is a creator, I would not have thought of their. And this is from a purely scientific and analytical.
You know, and that's one of
mindset.
the entrees into arguing against it. Is like, okay, well, you're using an idiosyncratic term or an idiosyncratic definition of what knowing is, of what knowledge is, of what epistemology is. All right, if we use the common philosophical definitions for those things, then what you think that I know that I don't think that I know, that isn't a part of my knowledge base, that isn't a part of the, you know, the web of reality that I move forward with, the model, then you're not using knowledge in the way that I'm using it. So, okay, now it breaks down. What definition of knowledge are you using?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. See, the way I rectified that verse back when I was a Christian was like, since there's atheists, it's like, maybe everybody knows subconsciously that God exists, but not necessarily consciously. And sometimes it takes somebody to bring them to the point where they can know that that was on their mind. Well, I don't know. I had to find a way to rationally explain it somehow, because of how my brain works. It's hard for me to just accept something like that, that everybody's not, no one can be an atheist. I know some people like G-Man can run with it, but that's not me.
That verse in Romans y'all was talking about, was that Romans chapter 1, verse 18 through 20?
Oh, I don't remember.
About the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against, etc., etc. And it gets down to where, because of that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. That's the one that's got that since the creation of the world, God.
There's a few verses that Christians. There's a few verses that Christians like to point to that say that you know, the whole
Is
thing
that
about. Because there's also a thing in Psalms, right, with the fool saying in his heart there is no God.
Yeah, there's a few. I don't remember.
There's a few.
That verse is talking about people in the Roman church. The church that were Christian that fell away.
Right.
It was what I understand.
And funny enough, that's actually when I had my debate with G-Man, which is on Hannah's channel, about does, I don't know how many of you guys have seen that, but basically, do atheists exist? Yes, we really did debate that. It was just me versus G-Man. And one of the things he liked to bring up were all these different verses in the Bible that say that, you know, atheists are not a thing. And I went through and I said, well, first of all, the Bible is not just one book. My argument is that there's a whole bunch of different books and stuff in there. The verse that you're using in Psalms, because he did bring up the Psalm one, he did use the fool have said in their heart there is no God and they are corrupt and all this stuff. And thing is, that's a psalm. Psalms are a collection of songs written by King David. King David could write anything he wanted to in a song. Songs do not describe reality completely. Some people like to use exaggerations in songs. Some people just describe their feelings in songs. As somebody who writes music myself, since I do make music and that, I was like, I understand that you use a lot of hyperbole and a lot of like metaphors and like figurative language in songs. So when David's saying something like the fool have said in their heart there is no God, he might not mean literally that every single person in God is a fool, or that everybody does believe God exists or whatnot.
You mean the Bible is full of metaphorical phrasing and alliteration?
The book of Psalms is a collection of songs.
Direct?
Yeah, the book of Psalms is a collection of songs. They're not written out as like direct facts. They're songs.
And you were a Christian and you can say this? Oh my God.
Yeah, I guess you can imagine why I got backlash. Huh?
Now, again, like outside of the interaction that I had with the faith through the texts, my grandfather, not just was he that professor, he was an ordained Lutheran minister. And then the other side of my family is the ones who were religious.
Right.
And so I've seen the Christian faith from the way I could best describe Lutheranism is Catholic light. Half of the guilt, none of the gold.
My mom is Lutheran now. We started off as evangelical, like Pentecostal, and then we were kind of in a non-denominational, and now she's Lutheran.
Missouri Senate or evangelical?
Oh, I don't know.
More conservative or more liberal?
Well, my mom's pretty liberal. I don't know. The church is kind of liberal because they have a female pastor. So there's that.
They're the evangelical Lutherans. They're the more liberal ones.
Yeah.
Again, I'm an atheist and I know all this shit.
I stopped going to church before she started going to the Lutheran one, so I don't know much about that one.
Again, one side of my family is Lutheran, the other side is Mormon, which really made summers interesting. Spend a few weeks at one, few weeks at the other, and it's like, wait a minute, what? wait, you're telling me there's another book? But wait a minute. He went from using stone tablets to gold. This guy could read it. I mean, fuck, at least Moses was written in the language so anyone could read it.
And I was taught about all religions very incorrectly because I was taught if it wasn't ours, it was satanic.
Southeastern U.S.?
No, Alberta, Canada.
Interesting. Did not expect that from that neck of the woods. Pun intended.
Yeah, actually, it's weird because it is. It's a pretty liberal place. Like, once I got out of high school and started to meet people, I realized how actually kind of rare my religious upbringing was. I didn't know that though, because I mean, I went to church 4 or 5 times a week. Like, I didn't have a life outside of church, right? So I didn't really know.
They design it that way.
Yeah, I was very insulated. University was very eye-opening.
Sorority or not?
No, we don't do that in Canada, really. No, but I mean, like, our engineering department, we would have like beer with the professors on Fridays. Like, drinking beer? Really? I don't know.
Well, keep in mind, beer and wine was not frowned upon by the church early on because it was actually the safest thing to drink.
It was very much frowned upon in our church. And actually, the rest of my family, like, so we went to Pentecostal, but a lot of my dad's family is actually UPC, like United Pentecostal, which, like, the women, you can't wear pants, no makeup, you can't cut your hair. Like, it's very, very strict.
And the skirts have to be
long,
as close to ankle length as possible.
Yep.
That sucks.
Yeah. They used to make their own skirts because you can't even buy garbage skirts like that, right?
Well, there are probably 1 or 2 crazy pastors away from being right in line with the Mennonite and Amish.
Yeah, and the way they live, they're not that far off.
Yeah.
Well, I heard of some churches where they want you to get rid of like your TV and stuff.
Oh yeah, like my UPC relatives don't have televisions. Oh no.
See, and that's one reason I don't like religion, right there. You people, I know it doesn't explain everybody, but there's people that go way too extreme with it. And on the off chance that they're right, that's even more reason to hate God.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worship a God that doesn't want you to have any sort of entertainment and wear something that's strict. I mean, it already even is strict enough, even in the more contemporary churches, what they say women should and shouldn't wear.
I actually went to a church, the last church that I ended up going to before I finally called it quits. I hadn't been, I think we went there for 8 months or something, and I didn't know just how conservative they were. Like, it wasn't that obvious until you started sitting through some sermons. And yeah, they were anti-gay and anti-drugs and alcohol, anti-tattoos and piercings and all that stuff. And I remember one day the pastor was going on about how we were so like how we were so liberal and understanding of other people, and how in this very church we've even had a woman up on the platform wearing pants. And I realized he was talking about me. And because I didn't even know, like in my last church I wore pants, right? So I didn't even know that that was a thing, but I'd worn pants like since I started going there, and it's like, oops.
My roommate, I think it was my roommate that told me this. After he retired from the military, he helped his sister out with a flower shop. He did like deliveries and helped paperwork and stuff. And I think it was either him or somebody else. But anyway, they was taking flowers up to the, where the podium is, where the preacher sits and he stands and does his thing, and you got the elders sitting behind him. Well, he started to go up there and set the flowers out, and they said, "Oh, excuse me, no sinners allowed on the whatever that was." He's like, "What?"
Wow.
He said he almost threw him down. He walked back out, and I think he put him down somewhere where they had to go walk for a bit to get him. I mean, I was like, just like that, bam, just right out of the blue. No sinners allowed on the whatever thing. And like what you was talking about, Char. You run into people like that with these weird things, and it's like, okay, we're gonna. Maybe they don't mean it, maybe they do. We're gonna come up with something to make other people inferior to us, right? Does that sound common?
Yeah, I mean, it's just some of the things churches do. It's almost bizarre, and you would never expect, unless you were told, you would never guess. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Well, like that story you just said, Heavy, it's probably a good thing it wasn't me delivering those flowers, because I still would have walked out and done the same thing and make them work for them that much harder. But before that, I would have said, like, wait, who up there? Because according to your Bible that's open right there, aren't all men sinners? So if no sinners are allowed up there, why are you standing up there?
Yeah, but
but they're all like they say that they've been redeemed and stuff, right?
See, I think it's so unfair.
If they've been redeemed, then they'd be in heaven.
Yeah. I think it is so
through their text.
Now, I think it is so unfair in some of these discussions that we can't have comebacks on them like that, like they do on us. Like texts storming out, "Y'all gonna burn in hell." We can't say things like that. We can't jibe at them and say, "Well, Darwin's going to come back and haunt you," or turn your dog into a cat.
Well, no, but they're going to have to sit in pews for the rest of their life singing church hymns. So
no,
but we could sounds terrible.
Our version of telling them that they're going to burn in hell is when you die, nothing, no heaven. No hell. You're not even going to know it. Nothing.
Yeah, see, you don't even need that. It's like, because, I believe in stuff. So they tell me, like, I'm burnt in hell. It's like, well, at least I get to enjoy myself now. Look what you're stuck doing, all the things you're not allowed to do.
Well, what you have to do, Trill, is if you believe you're going to burn in hell, you want to get on Satan's good side so that you get a nice, like,
I don't think that's how it works.
Oh.
If anything, that'd make things worse.
Yeah. Hey guys, I just want to say I appreciate all the stuff that you guys are talking about. I although I do I hold a different belief. I do have answers for all of these objections in my own head, but I can't articulate them correctly to you guys. So I'm not even going to try.
You know what you could do? You could always tell General this thing happened, and if General really wants to, you could try to. Because he might be able to articulate it better than you can.
Well, yeah, what my goal is to actually come in here and try to be able to articulate. But until then, I'm not going to even try to. So I appreciate you guys talking about this, and I do have answers, but I don't want to give false impressions. I don't want to say the wrong things.
Well, that makes sense. You have to. I would keep in mind though that your answers. Like I used to have answers too, and looking back, I see them all now as rationalizations, and they're not very convincing to me. Like what I want is scientific evidence of something. And other than that, I probably can't be swayed by much. Just my opinion.
So, okay, so what kind of scientific evidence are you looking for? Like,
well, I don't think there can be any.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, because you can't prove the supernatural with science. Like, there's no evidence of the supernatural, scientifically speaking.
So what do you think about the misanthropic principle and the amount of fine tuning?
That goes more to philosophy.
There's no fine tuning.
That goes more to philosophy, to be honest. That's a philosophical argument for God's existence.
Yeah.
And those don't sway me. Just like, oh, those are interesting thought experiments. Yeah, it is kind of cool, but that doesn't really prove anything. It just gets you to think, oh, okay. I've heard those before.
I mean, the problem with fine tuning is that you have to start with the assumption that humans were always supposed to be here, like from the beginning. If the goal was to get humans, then sure, the universe is fine-tuned, but I don't see a goal that there was humans. I think we are because we are. We just happened.
Well,
and I still think that doesn't prove God.
The universe hates us. It wants to kill us. We can barely survive just within a narrow range on the Earth as it is. We go too high, our blood's going to boil or something, or we'll pass out. Or we go too low, the ocean's going to crush us. You know, there are animals out there that will eat us alive, literally. There are germs and diseases that will eat us alive from the inside. The universe hates us. It doesn't want us alive.
Well, that's the whole misinformation.
I'm just kind of, exaggerating.
But I mean, the point is that we evolved to fit the universe. The universe didn't exist to suit us because we didn't exist. We became, so it's actually the opposite. And who's the guy that wrote that puddle analogy?
I don't know, but I've
heard
it.
So the idea is that there's a puddle, right? And he's sitting there, this puddle sitting there looking around going, wow, this hole fits me perfectly. It's fine-tuned to me. But actually what it is the water fits the hole, right? The puddle works because it adapts to the hole. And that's kind of how we are. We're water adapting to a hole. We're not the other way around.
Yeah, I've heard all this stuff before. And to me, it doesn't convince me.
Well, sure, and maybe that's fine. I just look at the science right behind it, and there is no scientific reason to believe in fine tuning. So, I mean, if it's emotional, I get it, but scientifically, it's not convincing.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying, well, the Earth is in the sweet spot it needs to be within our solar system. It's the right distance, right size, right atmosphere, so on, so on, so on. Well, given the number of stars in the universe and the number of possible planets out there that are circling these stars, if it didn't happen here, it would happen somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't feel like I'm special, right? Like I'm lucky. I'm definitely lucky because I didn't have to exist.
Now, hon, you're special to the people that love you.
Oh,
that know you, and even hate you. You're probably special to them too. So.
Yeah.
I better hugs.
I just think in order for fine tuning to matter, you have to start with the assumption that we are supposed to be here, and I don't think that's true.
Well, the misanthropic principle is just the opposite.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like Heavy was saying, it's as if the universe hates us. It wants to kill us, but for some reason we're here. So
chance and numbers, right? Like, I mean, probability alone.
To me, I wouldn't say it's chance and numbers because it's just too astronomical. It's
of course it's astronomical, but we're the ones that observed it. We're the ones that won the lottery. So yeah, it's astronomical, but we still won the lottery. It still happened.
I guess it comes down to your perspective. It comes down to do you perceive it as chance or were you just lucky, or do we perceive it as it's been guided, it's been fine-tuned, it really, yeah, you're right, it just comes down to your interpretation of it. But for me, I feel like it has been guided. It has been fine-tuned and tweaked.
What is the mechanism for that? Like, how does God do it?
We've been through this.
He doesn't? Yeah, and the answer was he doesn't, right? Like, that's the thing I don't understand. It has so basically. Well, then you're arguing then for determinism. You're basically saying that exactly as things are now were designed by God, like billions of years ago, and it just happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't get what the problem with that is.
Okay.
Well, part of the problem is actually something that I touched on before. Is if you take the Bible as the literal direct word of God and you take it as straight history,
which I don't.
You have, yeah. Well, again, you're starting from that vantage point. You're starting from that reference. You have such a long history of him being directly involved, pulling strings, putting people in certain situations, directly doing things, directly causing things to happen. And then all of a sudden in the New Testament, he's hands off.
Well, I mean, I just think if you actually think that God just set everything in motion that long ago and hasn't interacted with us since then that's determinism, and we don't have free will. And what does it matter? Like, I just don't
see. I think the problem with that is that, first of all, at least, I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I do think God still interacts, maybe not in the same way he did back in the old days, but like in other ways, like, when people experience miracles and stuff like that. I mean, he has to interact in order for that to even happen. And the other thing I would probably point to is, as far as the whole, like, what is it, like a determinism, free will thing is concerned, I think you can still, I know this is a weird thing because maybe I just had that good of imagination, but I feel like you don't, just because something has already been known ahead of time, because God knows how things are going to happen, I don't think that does anything with free will necessarily. I think you can still have free will. It's just that you don't know what's going to happen, but God already does. It's like it's part of a movie or something. Like, he already knows what's going to happen in the end, but you don't. And therefore, you can still make choices in that. But it doesn't stop you from making the choices just because you know what's going to happen. I mean, he knows what's going to happen.
The problem with trying to conflate the two, if he sets out a plan and then you deviate from the plan, it's either you didn't deviate from the plan and you were actually meant to make that decision of where you're going, or he changes the plan after you make that choice, which means he's still meddling, which means it's not predetermined.
I mean,
I don't think it's all predetermined. I already do think God does stuff, so it doesn't actually negate how I feel.
Well, no, but it's that it's pointing out it's either free will or it's
an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can't have a mix of the two, because if you have a mix of it still comes down to that. It comes to that reactionary bit of it, which means it's not predetermined that you are going to be going down this path. You are going to run into these obstacles. The only predetermined bit at that point is the end result where you are being led to.
I see what you're saying, and I still see it somehow as you can still have free will. Because here's the thing, I'm just being real here. Like, if you don't have any free will, and it's more like, I guess, how the Calvinists say, then you thought it'd be hard to get me, but if it's even theoretical, you thought it'd be hard for me to get back to Christianity before. You're going to have a really tough time getting me back to Christianity if everybody doesn't have any free will. We're all just basically doing our thing because God basically says so, and there's some people he specifically makes to burn in hell. It's like, yeah, I have a pretty tough time living with God like that.
Yeah, we'll avoid that rabbit hole. But I actually don't think we do have like free will.
Yeah, but you're not. Theist.
I know.
Well, have you given a listen or looked at any of the videos and stuff from Stephen Fry and his view on especially the Christian God?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I know about Steve Fry's view. Yeah.
And when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it is a very good question.
I think when you get down to, I don't know. I feel like that's one of the main reasons I quit calling myself like a Christian. That's because, I can no longer agree with half the stuff that was going on. And even at the time, I was just making a bunch of excuses for it and stuff, and calling myself a moderate Christian and stuff. And it's like, I'm not BS in that way anymore. So it works. I feel like, again, like I just said, I'm repeating myself. I just feel like this label of being a Misotheist is more honest. Sometimes I can cut the crap when it comes to the more presuppositional thing. I don't have to go through in your atheistic worldview, how do you count? I don't have to do that because they can already say, look, I'm a Misotheist. My basis is kind of the same for your basis. God, So, okay, so now can we cut to the more moral stuff without having to go through semantics and how can you know that you know and all that stuff. So I feel like that's very useful for getting through to people that like to argue that way. And it pisses me off. There's so many people that like to argue that way. So a lot of atheists can't get anywhere with those kind of people, but Misotheists can.
Well, and I think that's why they designed the arguments in that manner. It's like, well, let's just pull the rug out from under them and not let them be able to have any sort of say in it. And it's like when you go to a lot of those echo chambers, you especially see it on the young earth creationists and flat earth side of things where, oh, you're giving us opposition. Oh, shit, you are actually coming off as somewhat intelligent. Ban.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that happens.
Like, I've been to a few channels where I've literally gone into the live chat and just said, hi, guys, how you doing? Banned. Just for saying hi.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Flat Earth.
Yeah, that's no surprise.
Yeah, that's what happens. It's just some of these people it's just because if I can tell you something, and I think I might actually, you guys, I'll give you a chance to respond, but I think I might actually close with this one last point. I've been running this for a while. The one thing I will say, and this might be interesting, is back when I had my old channel, some of you guys might remember this because I think it's forever going to be on Skylar Fiction's channel. But back when I had my old channel, when I used to call myself Keefy's Elite Hunter, and I played a bit of a character here on Google Plus, keeping my social commentary and stuff separate from my actual identity before I decided to just make things easier and just come in as me. Back when I was still a Christian, G-Man actually went into one of my rooms. And you guys might know this, but he started like causing disruptions. He put people on ignore in the room where you can't hear them. So even though it's a live conversation, that there's certain people that he can't hear because he has on ignore. So he started making the whole conversation go out of whack. And I tried like 4 different times to say, G-Man, like, what's wrong? Like, can we come to an agreement so we can quit putting people on ignore? You can't just keep putting people on ignore, G-Man, because if you do that, the whole conversation goes out of sync because people can't hear each other. And I tried this for like 4 different times with him, and till finally he started making accusations about I'm not going to debate on your channel whenever this is how you run things. I was like, come on, this is even how I run things. Like, you're causing disruptions here, and at the time I didn't do Hangouts. Like, I barely do Hangouts. It's like, why are you saying that's how I run things? It eventually got me mad to the point where I ended up swearing at him. And that's a big no-no when you're in the Christian circles. You don't ever swear. And he didn't like the fact that I sweared at him. And he's like, oh, you're not a Christian, especially not with that kind of language. and he honestly didn't like the fact that I called him the not the racist version, but the cool version of the N-word. But he thought it was the racist version anyhow. I mean, I'm a rapper, and it's like, it just doesn't. There's a distinction between the two, but he didn't see it. He just thought it was being racist, and he was getting me really upset now because I'm trying to explain myself, and he's like, "Now the Christian," he's like saying the Christian community is going to eat you for dinner and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, then again, I'm losing my crap with him, and eventually I didn't want to kick him out because I know he wanted to get himself kicked out, because when he does that, he wins and he can make his video Easy Targets Part 3 or whatever it was going to be called. And so I didn't want to kick him out because I knew if I kicked him out, he won. But eventually I kicked him out because everybody in the room is practically begging for me to kick him out until finally I kick him out. And the point I want to make with that is that I remember more interactions with like the Clown Car Pies, whatever, and I remember posting on my Keefe's account saying, if this is what Christianity is about, then I don't want any part of it. Because honestly, I felt that, you know, that kind of behavior and that try to get yourself kicked out and all that and trying to make others feel bad. I honestly felt that was disgusting kind of thing. Like that shouldn't be, you know, what it's about if you're supposed to be following God and all this kind of thing. Like, sure, you can leave persecution complex for like some sort of, I don't want to paint the atheist this way, but some sort of atheist troll or whatnot. But if you're trying to be the arbiter of what's good and what's righteous and everything, like, I don't know, like being G-man, that's not the way you do it. And I feel like, you know, people like me and more moderate Christians, like we would get through to people a lot more. If anybody's going to lead, back then, it's like if anybody's going to lead somebody to Christ, it'd be Keefe's, not G-man, in my opinion. And the thing was that the reason why I think it got to me, though, is because that was me trying to rationalize my position as a more moderate Christian without really taking account what the Bible says and about what Christian values ought to be and how God feels. And that was me trying to rationalize how I felt. And the reason why I think G-Man triggered me so much is because some of the stuff that he was saying, it's like deep down, I felt it was true. I knew it was true. You know, Christians shouldn't be swearing and all this stuff. You know, Christians shouldn't be, you know, trying to, you know, hang out with the atheists and like, you know, bash the other Christians and all this kind of thing. It's got to a point where it's like, I'm trying to rationalize it with myself so I no longer feel bad. And I think it got to the point where people like G-Man, people like Pastor Steve Anderson, all these different radical people, by the point it's like, you know what? Sure, whatever. You guys are right. You guys represent Christianity. Like, yeah, you're the best. You're doing the best job of representing Christianity. Yeah, good for you. I don't want to be part of your group. Then I don't want to be a Christian. Like, screw it. And that's why one reason I say that, in a way, G-Man, people like him, were big straws in the camel's back to get this person to leave Christianity. So good fucking job, G-Man. So you're not doing anybody any favors. And if you are, you're reaching a very small audience. And that's just kind of the last big thing I'll say. If you guys want to comment, you can. But other than that, I'm just going to turn off the thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what about the time when I talked to you about it?
Well, here's the thing. People like Hunter, on the other hand, at least I feel like you're coming at it from a place of genuineness. I don't agree with everything that you say. But I don't think you're trying. I don't like you're not being a jerk about it, at least.
Right.
You know, you seem very understanding. I don't know if you know. You don't think you understand completely where I'm coming from, and that's because there are certain details about my life I haven't shared with you or even any of these people. But I think you're trying to come at it from a place of genuineness. From what I have given you, you know, you're trying to approach it in an honest kind of way.
So with that being said, which one? And I'm not, like, you don't have to answer this, but would you say that in a sense, and I'm not saying this is the case, that the way I come about it is more Christian, or would you say the way G-Man comes about it is more Christian? Not saying one is more Christian than the other. I'm just simply saying, like, because you said earlier, you know, if you were to join G-Man's type of Christianity, you wouldn't.
Right.
Because of the way that he carries himself and everything. But say, for instance, you were to join, just like in a nutshell, I guess my way of Christianity, I guess, you know, genuineness, would you say that that one is more Christ-like, or the way that G-Man puts it?
That's actually a hard question, believe it or not, because I do see you as more Christ-like in the sense that you're more humble and everything, and what the Bible calls you to be as far as New Testament stuff is concerned.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I am very much acquainted to the G-Man type of persecution kind of crowd, where they want to, like, you know, shame on people and condemn them and stuff like that. And it's very easy, because even though you might say, oh, there's not a whole lot backing it up, honestly, I still feel that there's something to it. Like, the proper kind of Christian would actually be a mix between the two, your type and G-Man's type.
Yeah. So
with
that actually being said, that kind of puts me to one like kind of conclusion. Instead of letting the Christ of the Bible represent himself, you're kind of getting an idea of who Christ is through other men, which men are flawed. So, and I think actually a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people do fall for that kind of mentality where they see a group of Christians, you know, or the Christians they run into as hypocrites, you know, fire breathing, or not fire breathing, but fire preaching, brimstone kind of thing, you know, cussing everybody out, you know, it's kind of like making like their own cult, you know. It's kind of like, you know, you can't sit at our table kind of thing. When kind of just like when I read into who Christ is, ultimately it's the ones, he calls out the ones who should know better, hence him calling the Pharisees son of Satan, because they should have known better, and yet they were up against them. But at the other time, the people who are sick, not only physically but spiritually, are the ones he healed. And so that's kind of like how I see what you mean. Like, there's a mixture of both, but at the same time, just don't let man show you who Christ is. I think definitely seek for yourself, which anybody should, and that's just my thing on it.
Yeah, and I get, and I understand you. I guess the thing I'd have with that is that, yeah, sure, don't let man, you know, show you like what Christ is like, but at the same time, I guess my response to that would be, don't let your wishful thinking of what Christianity you wish it should or could be get in the way of what it actually is.
Yeah,
and I feel like I was doing that way too much before, when I used to make all these excuses and play moderate Christian.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think wishful thinking is actually like fallacious.
Right.
I think,
and I feel like if I were to accept more of a nicer kind of stance or go back to being a moderate Christian, it's like, I feel like that would be disingenuous, because I'd only want to do that because I'd want to. Like, yeah, Heavy knows what I'm trying to say. I only want to do that because, you know, it's easier for me to live with myself, kind of thing. It's easier for me to still do what I want to do and follow Christ and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I understand. Yeah, I understand what you mean, and actually that's kind of a good way to go at it. Not just jumping in it just to kind of feel secure, but do it for the right reasons. Which, I mean, anybody should be doing it that way, not just like because of how you were raised, or, you know, you were invited to church and you had a warm, funny feeling inside. You know, I don't agree with any of that. I think with just a reasonable mind, just be rational and just always seek truth. That's just me, no matter what that means.
Right.
So
yeah, I understand.
And I'm sure I'm sure everybody on here would agree with me on that. So
does anybody else want to say some final thoughts before I?
Yeah, I was just posted in the side chat. Like, what Hunter said is actually what I was trying to allude to. It was actually, he said it better than I could. It does. He's right. You need to. There are people out there who really aren't like G-Man kind of stuff. There are people genuinely who want to invest their time with a person who does have, you know, a lot of questions and a lot of things that they want to talk about. And I hope that myself and Hunter in general, that we can be the minority or whatever to what you've already experienced. So I want to put myself into that kind of position where I understand like where you are, that there are Christians out there that are extremists and they have these beliefs, but I want to come in and have a practical sense to the whole thing. So I hope that's how I'm coming off right now.
Well, again, I've yet to see your actual argumentation, so we'll have to see about it we'll have to see how rational you are when you actually present some points. I know you said you don't want to do it right now or anything, but
in due time. In due time.
Right.
Actually, I'm trying to make sure I pronounce. Is it? How do you pronounce your name?
It's long A. It's Patron Sartan.
Okay, because I was gonna say Patron's actually been in the Bible studies with me in general that we do, and
okay.
So I mean,
I'm acquainted with General because he has some really interesting takes on things.
Oh yeah, so. But yeah,
I would just add it's been a good conversation, and I figure you, like everyone else, is on a bit of a journey, and I think you're off to a really good start if you're willing to be honest with yourself.
Amen.
And Heavy, anything you have to say?
Yeah, I'm glad I finally let you drag me in because, like I said earlier, I have learned something that I did not know before, and it kind of, I mean, it maybe doesn't affect me that much personally, but I mean, you brought up something that I never really would have thought of happening with somebody, and then the difficulties that come with it. That was pretty awesome, dude. Thank you.
Right. And I hope
I hate you're going through that, but thank you for sharing it.
No, I know, and hopefully, it adds. I guess it adds a little more of a human factor too, because a lot of people in this community might be like, "Oh, who's this Trill guy?" Because he doesn't claim to be an atheist, and he doesn't seem very smart when it comes to science. Why is he here? So now, kind of people know my story, and it might. I don't know. Maybe it helps. Immutable. Did you have to say anything, or is he just being quiet the whole time?
No, I'm good. I thought it was a really good conversation, though.
All right. Yeah. So I guess I'll just basically close by saying thanks everybody for watching the Hangout. This is actually my first time running a Hangout with the Great Debate Community channel, because in case people don't know what this is, basically it's like a public channel where make a bunch of us the moderators of it. So every now and then one of us can just run a Hangout, kind of as like a public kind of. It's kind of cool actually. Just a public kind of Hangout. So, since I am representing the Great Debate Community in a way, I will say go check out the Great Debate Community on Google+. You can find it's like 800 something members in there now. We discuss everything from like science to philosophy to religion, theology, that kind of thing. No politics. It kind of sucks. I like talking about social issues. That's one of my strong suits, but I know it sucks. But anyways, science, everything but politics, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, you can go there, check it out. Be sure to also check out and subscribe to Steve McRae, because he's the one that even started like this whole Great Debate Community being an official brand and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I'll say is basically a plug for myself and a YouTuber named Pin Valentine on MX Pin Valentine's channel. If you search up MX Pin Valentine, me and him do a podcast on Fridays where we talk about everything from entertainment to news to politics. Every now and then some things even in the Great Debate Community. It's just kind of a chill environment because it's just me, him, and maybe one other person or so just talking about this stuff. Right now, his channel is going through a little bit of a dilemma, so we won't be posting again for a while. But if you subscribe and you stay tuned, hopefully we'll get that started again. So, yeah, thank you, everybody, for watching. And as I used to say back when I was Keefies, peace out, y'all.
Yeah, boy.